Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen and councillors. It's 5:30. It's just ticked 5:31, so we'll get underway, councillors. Firstly, may I acknowledge the traditional owner of the land we meet on today, the Wiradjuri people, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. I'd just like to inform people in the gallery that these meetings are live streamed and are broadcast live, so anyone speaking in open forum, it will be recorded and published, and if people in the gallery speak, there's a chance that it will be picked up on our live streaming, so I would advise all to be aware of that fact. Tonight in public forum we have two speakers. Speakers work on the basis of 5 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a little tap at a 4-minute mark if we get to there. So the first speaker we have tonight is Penny Simpson in regard to the naming of Jim Anderson Avenue. Penny.
Mayor Ingram and councillors, my name is Penny Simpson, and my sister Julie O'Connor and I thank you for the opportunity to briefly address you in relation to the recommendation to formally adopt the street name Jim Anderson Avenue, after confusion ensued as to the actual name of the street following a recent signage change to just Anderson Avenue after 26 years. As Jim Anderson's daughters and his only remaining family, we can assure Council and any residents of the street present tonight that the full name Jim Anderson Avenue was the intended and chosen name of the street, as requested by Young Shire Council in 1991, in consultation with our late father's family and in recognition of Dad's contribution of music to the people of Young for over 50 years. Unfortunately, an error in the transfer of records somewhere along the line has resulted in the original street name being shortened. We wish to express our appreciation to Council for their attention to this matter, acknowledging the costs incurred and the effort that the relevant Council staff have put in to rectify the error and alleviate confusion. We would be deeply grateful should Council choose to ratify and formalise the street name Jim Anderson Avenue in recognition of our late father. Thank you.
Thank you. The second speaker tonight on a planning proposal on Wombat Street is Brian Tredney. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors, for the opportunity to speak. I speak to you in regards to the planning proposal in relation to 8 Wombat Street and 1 MURRINGO Street. I speak on behalf of a group of 6 people who all signed a submission that was made. It's felt by this group that the development is an intensification that will increase the intrusion of amenity in a problematic manner, and that the proposal also leaves little options for future development of the area for the people who own land there. The report by Council Officer appears to support much of what was raised in our submission, but then defers it off to DA stage rather than addressing the impacts of this on the planning proposal. The current development that is there has been there for quite a long time, and it's a clear indication through the planning proposal that there's an intention to expand and enlarge that development. With the increase in business and further intensification of traffic and noise and commercial activity in the area through buildings, increased hard stand area and general public activity in the vicinity, it's suggested in the report the planning proposal is not about the operation of the business or what will be built on the site, but these matters do weigh heavily on the proposal, as they are core issues that will then need to be dealt with because of the possible outcomes of the proposal. The use of conditions of consent to try and control a commercial activity that has been allowed to happen in an inappropriate location is not very practical and not very enforceable. Issues such as visiting customers late at night, traffic movements and commercial activities are not necessarily always controllable by the business and the business owner. The expansion of the business footprint is a clear signal that the business will increase in intensity, and the loading and unloading of vehicles in Wombat Street only is not necessarily supportable. This activity has already happened in the lane behind Wombat Street and in MURRINGO Street from time to time, and again is something that's not necessarily totally in the control of the owner. But simply Wombat Street itself is a poor location with restricted visibility for traffic as it approaches over the bridge and the central town from the central town area. Increasing this demand will only lead to further compliance issues in the longer term and possible safety issues with Wombat Street as traffic increases as the Kingsvale Road residential area continues to expand. As we explain in our submission, this area was not recognised as appropriate under the 2010 LEP. The area was given no status and the current business operates on a continuing use right. Housing demand for the age is going to be a large driver, and this land was seen in the 2010 LEP as ideal residential land. These issues are important strategic issues towards this report, and part of that responsibility of the LEP to manage the use of land. This is where we feel the proposal is most lacking and where the interests of the community are not served. The proposal does not consider the long-term impact on the land use of the neighbouring area, and as it doesn't propose to look at a broader rezoning of land so that the area may be used in a different way, it also doesn't support any of the key decisions made in the 2010 LEP. Once the proposal is accepted and commercial investments made, then it's very difficult for council and its staff to enforce conditions of development over a simple, sorry, my apologies, for the owner simply cannot adhere once the development happens.
You got a minute to go, Brian.
Yep, thanks. I'm sure we all know of developments in our own areas where conditions of consent are just not able to be met, and ongoing and problematic compliance issues have stretched out over long periods of time. Thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor.
Councillor O'Connor.
I've just been told that the live stream isn't working.
Out of my realms of efficiency. Councillor O'Connor can keep us informed with her guardian on that matter. Thank you. Okay. So, item 4, apologies. With any apologies, all councillors are present, all staff. Thank you. Item 5, could everyone please be upstanding for expressions of sympathy? I'd ask that we all pause for a moment in respect of Joan Spring, Beryl Tate, Brian Foley, Louise Robinson, Maureen Court, Lillian Reeves, Anne Carmody, James Thompson, Wendy Pellers, John Ryan, Corey Wall, Clarence Powell, Patricia Jennings, Nolene White, Ronald Byrne, Deborah Young, John Carmody, Dean Bowing, Merle Thompson and Kathleen Glover. Thank you. Thank you. Item 6 is confirmation of minutes from our previous meeting. Moved Councillor Walker, seconded Councillor Flannery. Thank you. All those in favour? So be it. Item number 7 is declarations of interest, councillors. Anyone with anything to declare? I'll declare an interest in item 18159, in which item I'll take no part of. Does everyone know?
I'll also declare an interest in that item. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckman. If that's the case, we'll move on to reports. Yeah. Beg pardon? We did. We confirmed the minutes? We did confirm the minutes with Councillor Walker and Councillor Flannery, and everyone voted aye. And
Gee, you're quick.
all on the ball tonight. Thank you. Okay. There you go.
Report number 18134, live streaming of council meetings. The purpose of this report is to advise the council that the trial period for the live streaming of council meetings has been finished, and that a decision needs to be made to continue live streaming of the council meetings under the policy. We previously adopted a 6-month trial based on the policy. We note that there are some changes coming with the new code of meeting practice, but I'm unsure when that'll be brought together, and it seems to have been taking some time before we actually receive that code. So what I'm recommending is we continue with the same code of meeting, the policy, and that we just go ahead with live streaming based on that policy.
Moved Councillor Walker, seconded Councillor Manchester. Thank you. Any questions or?
Point of clarification, live streaming wasn't compulsory, it's now compulsory.
Not as far as I know of at this moment. There is a draft code of meeting practice in place which hasn't been confirmed, which would make it, if that's passed, it would make it compulsory.
Yeah. No, it's not compulsory at the moment.
Okay, we had a mover and a seconder for that. Any other speakers or questions? If not, I'll put it. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Councillors, at this point I might ask, would Council like to bring the 2 items forward that were spoken on in the public forum to do those matters while the people are here? Move Councillor Wallace, seconded Councillor Flannery, that we move item 1842 and 1845, I think. They were the ones? Okay, so item 18142, clarification of road name, Jim Anderson Avenue. I'd ask, with the Director of Sustainable Growth, like to speak to that report.
Through the Chair, as highlighted by the Speaker in public forum, the name of Jim Anderson Avenue has always been the intention to not have it shortened. Unfortunately, when the street blade did go up, it was went up, or the replacement street blade, my apology, went up as Anderson Avenue and left the Jim Anderson off. The recommendation from staff is to reinstate that and have the street formally known as Jim Anderson Avenue.
Thank you for that, Director. The recommendations there, councillors. Moved Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor Walker.
Just a comment or a question, possibly.
Councillor
If I may,
Wallace.
Mr. Mayor. I feel like I'm in Groundhog Day. Wasn't this
I thought we did it before.
this matter dealt with previously? I don't understand why it's come again.
Through you, Director.
Through the Chair, there was an objection to the proposal, so it needed to come back to Council to have that formally resolved in the objection to demonstrate that we considered the objection and to have it formally resolved that that is the decision of Council.
Thank you. So we've had a mover and a seconder. There's no other discussion. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you. So we'll jump to 1845. Was the second one. Planning proposal, 8 Wombat Street, Young, a review of submissions. And again, I'll hand over to the Director of Sustainable Growth to speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of this report is to consider the submissions that were lodged during the public submission period. And Council had resolved to support the planning proposal and to send it off to the Department of Planning for a gateway determination that allowed it to be placed on public exhibition, and that was in July 2017. So essentially what it is, the proposal would allow an expansion of the Young Motors business that's currently located in Wombat Street onto adjoining land in Wombat Street and also onto land behind. There were 3 submissions received during that period, and the report then considers these submissions. So the submissions or the issues that have been raised during the submission process need to be given due consideration by Council, and that's what this report does. So the main issues that were raised were the protected tenancy and the status of that tenant should the proposal go ahead, and that tenant is in the land in Wombat Street immediately adjacent to the existing business. The traffic, character and amenity impacts and concerns about the appropriateness of the location of the business overall and the subsequent expansion of that business. So the question or the decision before Council tonight is to either progress with the planning proposal, amend it to remove some, all, or make other amendments to the proposal, or to decide not to go ahead at all. So the staff recommendation is that Council seeks some additional information from the proponent, particularly around some advice on what are the consequences for that tenant in 8 Wombat Street, given the long-term protections that they do have. While it's not strictly a planning matter per se, the proposal, should it go ahead, does have the potential to make either that person homeless given their protected tenancy rights, or delay the implementation of the proposed outcomes of the planning proposal. We'd like to see some further explanation around the justification for not relocating the business, as the site hasn't been identified and consciously wasn't identified in the former Young LEP as being a site that's suitable for commercial development or desirable for commercial development. But if Council should decide to support the proposal to rezone that, the applicant be required to prepare a site-specific development control plan to regulate how those issues may be managed.
Thank you for that, Director. Council, the report's there and the recommendations there in front of you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, question to the Director. Director, you just mentioned that the development has the potential to make that person homeless. Isn't there not? What do you base that potential upon?
Mr. Mayor, just for a point of meeting order, I move to move to committee. Or we either move the motion.
There we go. A mover and seconder, or we move into committee. You're correct. So you move.
I'll move and move to committee.
Seconded to move into committee. Seconded by Councillor Horton. Thank you. So,
Sorry.
the question from Councillor Armstrong stands.
Sorry. So, through the Mayor, the protected tenant and their rights under that agreement is specifically for war veterans and for to allow them to stay in a place. So if the building was to be demolished, it would be under those protected tenants' rights. They need to be found essentially somewhere else to go.
So I ask again, you said there was potential to make that person homeless. What you've spoken about then is a DA that hasn't been placed before council, and the potential for that DA to make the person homeless. But the reality of it is the matter that we have before us now has no potential to make that person homeless at all, because we don't know whether the owners of the property can make alternative arrangements for that person. So I actually think these recommendations are rubbish. I think that to require the proponent to justify something that there is no evidence of at all against different circumstances, and I think that particular protection exists to demolition only. Is that correct? Okay. Is there a proposal to demolish anything here now? Is there a DA for demolition?
Through the Mayor, no. There's not.
So point number 1 is rubbish. Do you agree?
I don't like the word rubbish.
I don't like the word. Suggesting that point
rubbish.
number 1 is entirely. I retract that, Mr. Mayor. Point number 1 is entirely redundant in this argument.
Through the Mayor, the proposal that was put before us was to rezone the site and following the rezoning of that site to redevelop that site. So we have that knowledge because that was put before us as justification for the planning proposal. So we have the knowledge that the dwelling is proposed to be demolished. So that is given to us as a justification for or as part of the proposal in the rezoning in this rezoning planning proposal.
I think it's a very long bow to draw. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Thank you, Director. Comments or Councillor Flannery?
Mr. Mayor, just perhaps I've missed it, but the gateway determination, what's the land use zoning being changed from and to? Point number 1. And number 2, well, I guess to Councillor Armstrong's point, surely a wider view of protected tenancy must be taken into account as to whether there's a serious threat to one person's occupancy versus it's not clear to me whether the proponent is the owner of the land. Is that the case, or what the actual ownership conditions are, or whether they're looking to purchase it? Or
through the Mayor, first to the first question, the proposal is to amend Schedule 1 of the Young LEP to allow a vehicle sales or hire premises on the land the subject to the planning proposal. So it's currently R1, and the ownership is currently, the proponent currently owns the land.
So it's currently R1, and it's noted here on page 46 that it be zoned B4, B6, B7. What's it being zoned to, sorry?
Through the Mayor, there's no proposal to actually change the zoning. It's a change to the LEP in Schedule 1 that allows additional uses. So you can have additional uses on a parcel of land if it's listed in Schedule 1 of the LEP without actually changing the underlying zoning.
Thank you for that. Anyone else got any questions or discussion they'd like to talk to before we come out of committee? Councillor O'Connor.
How long has the business been going? Like, do they own that business already, or is it a new purchase?
It's current ownership.
Oh, it's current ownership.
Just a
Councillor
question
Wallace.
from someone who knows a little about planning. Would this potential change to Schedule 1 of the LEP therefore have effect on other businesses or in the area, in that zone?
Through the Mayor, if the other businesses in that zone wish to do a similar thing, they would have to go through the same process.
Thank you. Any questions or commentary before we come out of committee?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, through the Mayor to the Director, how long has the business been established there, Director?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I believe it's a long-standing business, but I haven't.
Yeah.
I don't have intimate knowledge of how long it's been there. I'm sorry.
Mr Mayor,
Councillor?
I might be able to help you there, Councillor Horton. I know the existing business, I think, has been there about 38, but at least 70 years ago, there was actually a tractor business, I have a feeling. So the premises have been there for a long time.
Thank you.
And in constant occupation.
Thank you for that. Okay, would someone like to move us back out of committee, if that's the case?
Yes.
Councillor Wallace moved. Councillor O'Connor second, that we come out of committee. Okay, thank you, councillors, for the discussion and debate on that. I go back to the recommendation that's there in front of us. Have I got a mover or to do with the recommendation?
I'll move the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Recommendation has been moved by Councillor Wallace. It's been seconded by Councillor Manchester. Would anyone like to speak against?
Mr Mayor, this is ridiculous.
Councillor Armstrong.
I'm aware that the previous owner of this property had acquired properties on either side for the specific purpose of expansion of the building, the expansion of the premises rather, the business, and in one particular case, a house located to the north was demolished, and council approved a DA to allow the cars to be displayed there. There's a huge amount of what I believe speculative licence taken in these recommendations. If council wants to kill business and commerce in Young, then by supporting these recommendations, you'll be well on the way to doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Would anyone like to speak for the recommendation?
Through the Mayor.
Councillor Rolls.
In part, I agree with Councillor Armstrong, being a resident of Wombat Street. Oh, maybe I have...
No, you're fine. It
Am I fine to talk?
sounds like you're speaking. No, you're fine. You're speaking against, I guess.
I can see the implications of the business being expanded. As it's almost historical, it's been there a long time and therefore is accepted. I see the concerns of the local residents and understand from going past those premises quite often their concerns re the traffic and also even the back lane use. I'm not sure that I agree that the recommendation is wrong. I understand though the cost, the implication of moving that premises from where it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rolls.
Yeah, Mr Mayor,
Speaking for?
I'm speaking against.
Anyone else? Would anyone else like to speak for the recommendation?
I speak for the recommendation
Plenary?
to the extent that I think we should support the gateway determination. With clarification, if a protected tenant has greater protection against eviction and rent increases, isn't that the protection they're afforded by a higher authority? Therefore, if we proceed, that's the owner's issue with the tenant. Doesn't it follow that if you're a protected tenant and we support this determination, it is accepted and adopted, therefore the owner of that land has to negotiate with that tenant to either provide an alternative residence or he can't knock down the house? Isn't that?
That's my understanding,
So what's the argument?
Okay, Councillor
Mr Mayor, can I move an amendment? We delete clauses 1 and 2 and just adopt clause 3.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we've got an amendment on the table, councillors. For the recommendation, we drop off item 1.1 and .2 and just go with .3. And it's had a mover and a seconder. Tony and Councillor Flannery and Councillor Armstrong. So that amendment's been moved. Would anyone like to speak against that amendment? Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr Mayor. This is obviously a matter that Councillor Rolls has highlighted the issues on both sides, and I think for that very reason we need to have further hoops, and that's effectively what the original motion had. I think it's a prudent course of action, and as such I wouldn't be supporting the amended course of action. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Someone like to speak for the amendment?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Horton.
The business has been there for some 70-odd years, and I'm sure that the owners will do the right thing by the tenants in the home or the house that they own. As was pointed out earlier, we are trying to grow the community. We're wondering why young people leave and go to Canberra and Wagga and Sydney, because there are not enough jobs here. This guy's trying to grow his business, or the gentleman or lady who owns the business, and it's been there for 70 years. For goodness sake, let the man continue, and it hasn't worried people there for 70 years. It won't worry them in the future, because I'm sure that they'll attend to those matters to keep the noise down. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Is any other speaker against the amendment? If not, anyone else would like to speak for the amendment, or the mover would like to speak to it?
Look, Mr Mayor, what we're doing is trying to progress the gateway determination. I believe there's still more hoops that we need to go through. I believe protected tenancy provides its own protections. I don't see how we need to further entrench that or exacerbate it, or whatever you want to say. As to point number 2, I believe if Council believes that this is encroaching on residential areas, we should be, and I guess that's the underlying comment to point 2, we need to approach the car yard owner and see what we can do with the development of light industrial area to further that. But at the moment we don't have that option available, and we're not being proactive like that, so I think we should support what's here.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. So the amendment that's on the table is the recommendation, the single .3. We've had speakers for and against, so I'll put that amendment. All those in favour of the amendment? Against? That's carried.
Okay. Who voted for?
Oh, sorry, we'll have a record of those who voted for. Sorry.
Yeah.
Those that were against?
Manchester. Now becomes the motion.
Now, that amendment becomes the motion. All those in favour? Those again? So be it. Thank you.
So, Councillor Manchester voted.
Councillor Manchester voted the same way, didn't he?
For.
He voted. Okay. Okay, thanks, councillors, for handling those 2 items for the gallery that we've taken care of now, and we'll go back to our ordinary agenda. Where we're up to? I'm not. Oh yeah, I do know.
135.
135. I'll hand over to the acting general manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report is about the heads of agreement for the new library and community facility in Young. In the past few weeks, we have been working on bringing together heads of agreement to actually define the project and define what we actually agree on and how we're actually prepared to go ahead with the project. A copy has been circulated confidentially by email to each councillor of this agreement. If you want to discuss particular clauses or something like that, we should go into closed council to do that, and I suggest we do that at the end of the meeting if you do. If you're generally happy with where it is, we're still working on this agreement. There's still a few issues that have been toing and froing, primarily around clauses 6, which is the cap on expenditure, and also the communication part of the agreement. So I'll leave it that as an introduction, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, General Manager. So you've heard the circumstances around that, council. We can deal with that matter now, or we can defer that matter into closed if anyone feels they need to speak about specific clauses in that. So I'm open to council's guidance here.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we defer the matter to closed council.
It's moved, Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Stadmiller, that we move that item to closed council later in the meeting. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you. So we defer item 134 to that. Item 136, establishment of community working groups for Burrangong Creek and BLACKGUARD Gully projects. I'll hand over to the Executive Director, Corporate and Community.
So this is a report on establishing a steering group for that project. There's been quite a lot of public interest in it, and I think that a steering group will be a really good way to for the public to have some input into it.
Thank you for that, Director. So the report's there, councillors, with the recommendation.
Just, Mr. Mayor, can I just question? Through Mr. Mayor, can I just get some clarification on where this Burrangong Creek project is actually located?
Well, I've got Burrangong Creek, and then on the next page I turn over.
It says Burrangong Creek. I would point council to item 1, establish a small working group of community members, maximum 3, for both the Burrangong Creek and the BLACKGUARD Gully projects. So
thank you.
Can I just get some clarification on which Burrangong Creek project this is?
This is the Stronger Communities funding for continuing the work that's been done along Burrangong Creek, which is, I think, from the bridge down to up to where it does it run into the BLACKGUARD Gully. So it's finishing some of the work that was done as part of that infrastructure master plan, I think, the cultural infrastructure master plan, and continuing the work that's been done along.
We got a street. We got some street names, some locations. From where to where?
I think it's from Thornhill Street, and it runs past the sports precinct.
From Thornhill Street west to east to BLACKGUARD Gully.
I think that's the area.
If I may, Mr. Mayor,
Councillor Wallace.
Director, is this the working group for the project that came before council?
Yes.
Yeah. So that project, is my understanding, and I know none of the names of the streets in Young, but is from Thornhill Street west and from some other street east towards BLACKGUARD Gully. It involves pedestrian paths in those two areas, together with an extensive number of new playgrounds to Councillor Rolls' enjoyment, and
yours too.
And mine too. And they're the projects that form part of that.
Does this involve Arboretum Park?
It involves Arboretum Park to the extent of putting a new playground in there, yes.
Yeah, look, councillors, I think we're digressing off the point that's been made. I understand Councillor Armstrong.
I'm clear on that.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
But there is talk here, the recommendation, the report talks about having a working group of community members involved with it, and there's a lot of work to be done on it. But thank you, Councillor Flannery. Seconded Councillor Horton. The recommendation, all those in favour? Again, so be it. Thank you. Item 18137, Bill O'Reilly Memorial MURRINGO. I have a note here from staff saying that the recommendation to read, note the report and refer the information to the MURRINGO Showground Trust. I might refer to the Executive Director, Corporate and Community, please.
So we've had an approach via a group in MURRINGO called the MURRINGO First Families from a son of Bill O'Reilly, who was a famous Australian cricketer, and they have said that they don't believe that the memorial is a fitting tribute anymore, and I had thought that it was actually on council land, but it's not, it's on sports ground land, so we'll forward that for the Sports Ground Trust to deal with.
Okay, so I take that we just delete that item. Thank you very much then. We move on to the next item, which is item 18138, section 355, committee update. Back to the Director of Executive Director, Corporate and Community.
This is just an update of some of the comings and goings from the section 355 committees, which we'll probably have every month.
Thank you for that. Recommendations moved, Councillor Manchester. Seconded, Councillor Tuckerman. Thank you. Questions? All those in question, Councillor O'Connor, sorry.
Just a quick question. I notice it says up here that Council received a late nomination from Judith Pugh representing the Currawong Art Museum Association. Mr Brad Thorsby is the alternate. What do you mean alternate?
If Judith Pugh can't attend, then Mr Thorsby will attend.
Thank you for that.
Through the Mayor,
Councillor Rolls.
I just have a query.
Yep.
If you're not resident in Hilltops, can you belong to Section 355 committees?
Good point.
Generally, no, but we do have, for instance, on the Arts and Culture Committee, Susan Conroy, who is the Executive Director of the Regional Arts Organisation, of which we are a member, and she's not, she doesn't live here, but so for those specialist things, no, but generally, yes, we like them to live in the local government area.
So for just to be an ordinary committee member whose focus is for the community, one would expect that the members would be residents of Hilltops.
Yes, that's right.
So I'm just noting a name here that I believe doesn't reside in Hilltops, wishing to join a committee, and I'm just wondering if that is really the right way to go.
Given that point that Councillor Rolls has just made, maybe this matter should be deferred to the next meeting when more clarification can be made on the address of that particular person, and we can get some concrete clarification around that. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Could I
Councillor
speak
Wallace,
against that motion?
Okay.
Motion to defer. Can I speak against the motion?
Well, I only had a mover, didn't have a seconder, so Councillor Armstrong moved it. Do I have a seconder for the deferment? Councillor Horton, I did. Thank you. Speaker against, which is Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, look, I'm not on the Arts Committee on this occasion, but in previous incarnations I was, and the people who are on that committee are invited to do so often because they represent certain arts groups within the council region, and I don't think the committee will work unless you have those people, because it's tried to work up till this point, and the representation hasn't been very good in this council term, and so extra invitations were put out to other groups, and if someone happens to live outside the area, even though their project is within the area, I think they should be allowed to sit on it, and I don't see any harm in it. They're trying to do something for the merit of the region, not for any other reason. So.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace, for that. Anyone like to speak for the matter of deferment?
Just, Mr Mayor, I think it gives, I take on board Councillor Wallace's comments, and I thank him for his service on those committees over the years. I also take on board Councillor Rolls' comments, and I'm inclined to believe that this issue requires further investigation before a decision is made.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. So, if there's any other speakers on the matter, I'll put the...
Should we move it into confidential?
Well, how about we take the vote that we've got a mover and a seconder on the matter of deferment and see how we go, Council. I'm not talking any names in particular. I don't wish to have any names mentioned. It's a broad discussion that was brought up by Councillor Rolls. I think it's valid. I understand Councillor Wallace's point very well. There's a mover and a seconder for that we defer this matter to next month's council meeting. All those in favour? Again. It's carried. Thank you, councillors. Item. I will note on that every council meeting that I seem to have presided over since we've been together seems to revolve with some conflict about 355 committees. I just don't know why. But, it's a concern to me, and hopefully between now and next month's meeting I can get some clarification around the guidelines and the rules that are set, and it'll make all our jobs easier. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Flannery, you're right there. 18139, visit to Council from Young High School Year 7 and 8 links to learning class. Again to the Director of Corporate and Community.
So this report I did because we had a group of young people in from the Links to Learning School, and it's a supported learning class, and they were very interested and asked lots of questions about the council, and in consultation with Councillor Rolls, we thought it would be good to let them see how a council process worked. So they had some really good ideas about some things that they wanted to see in young, especially. They brought forward some equipment that had been broken and needed to be repaired, and so I've written to the class to let them know what was happening, let them know that they could speak at the council meeting, and also let them know it was being live streamed, and this is just a report for the council to note what had actually happened with that class.
Thank you for that. The recommendations there.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, can I offer an amendment to that recommendation?
You can.
Just that we extend an invitation to Bora Central School and Murrimborough High for a similar visit if that so fit their expectations.
We haven't had a mover and a seconder, so I'm quite happy to put that as a second dot point on that recommendation. If we give our pencil a time.
Bora Central School and Murrimborough High School.
Murrimborough High School.
Through the Mayor,
Councillor
can I
Rolls.
just make a comment that I'd like to thank Director Furness for her support in this exercise where the boys really had a go at going through the due process and the processes of local government.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they gained from it, and I certainly enjoyed the experience of working with them.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so have we got...
In a similar manner. Sorry? In a similar manner.
Mr Mayor, look, I think if we're going to do this properly, noting Councillor Stadmiller's amendment, we better add Hennessy in, please.
Waiting and waiting and waiting for it to come. Waiting and waiting.
Hennessy.
I think Bombala High School's out, but...
And look, if we're really going to do, why don't we make a point of trying to engage Year 7 and 8 generally once a year or something? I mean, let's
That's the intent.
let's have it so, and they can work together or as their individual schools. But even if we're going to do this as a point of trying to get collaboration with council and younger age groups, perhaps we should get all the 3 schools working together, or 4 schools, the age groups across the shires.
Director? On the door?
So there are 2 other forums that we're going to have as part of the ongoing CSP work with young people. I think there's one in October and one in March, and that's for all of the schools to send representatives, and we did that for the CSP and it worked very well. This is a specific civic lesson, is it?
It's for disengaged students, really,
Special class.
the group.
Yep. So while the opportunity there and the second dot point's there, I think that opens it up for staff to work at their discretion and make sure that opportunity is extended to everyone that would like to take it up. So I think that's the meaning of what Council's after. So that's Councillor Stadmiller asks for that amendment to be put there. Could I have a seconder for that recommendation as it reads now, please? Councillor Rolls second that. So if councillors are happy with what's on the board there now, I'll move that. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you, councillors. Item 18.140, cash investments, as at the 30th.
Monthly report detailing the council investments in accordance with clause 212 of the Local Government Regulation 2005. There's a full list of investments as of 30th June 2018 and some graphs as well depicting the state of our fortune.
Any questions or comments? Moved, Councillor Horton. Seconded, Councillor O'Connor. Thank you. There's no questions or discussion. I'll put that. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you. We go to item 18.141, draft voluntary planning agreement, BANGO Wind Farm. And I'll pass over to Director of Sustainable Growth.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through the Chair, this is a report to Council recommending that Council adopt the draft document for the Community Enhancement Fund and Voluntary Planning Agreement for the BANGO Wind Farm. The document was placed on public exhibition and no submissions were received, and this report is now presented to Council to formally adopt that voluntary planning agreement and community enhancement fund agreement.
So moved, Mr Mayor. Can I wait for the second? Can I just point out in the agreement it talks about I think it's notification. I've just lost my spot, but it's notification. It only talks about the Yass Valley or the Valley View. I just don't know whether we need to be so specific rather than more general on where the advertisements need to be. Obviously, it's something that Yass had put in. If I could find the spot, I could tell you which one it was. Thank you.
Council's Valley Views newsletter.
Through the Mayor, I can take that out and leave it as a wider general notification.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I've lost the covering page. Sorry, excuse me for a second. I'd like to read paragraph 3 of the report. The purpose of the VPA is to establish a mechanism to fund community enhancement projects that to offset in part the impacts of the development should approval be given. Funds collected under this agreement can be used to enhance social wellbeing in the community of impact for the purpose of public purpose in relation to planning agreements. The Act states that the provision of recoupment of cost of providing of and recurrent expenditure relating to the provision of public amenities or public services, affordable housing or transport or other infrastructure is a purpose for which funds may be collected. It's a little surprised we didn't get any responses. I mean, no offence, but that is just, whoever wrote that was either drinking something up too late or it's, I mean, we really need to get public documents out so they make some sense. I mean, it does not make any sense to me.
Point taken, Councillor Flannery. Okay. Any other questions or comments? We've got a mover and a seconder. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Again? So be it. 18.142 we've dealt with. Takes us to item 18.143, variation to development standards, lot 130 Wombat Road. And I will pass over to the Director of Sustainable Growth to talk to the report.
Through the Mayor, this is this report and the next report are items that I was requested to bring back from last month's meeting, where Council resolved to approve the development applications, and I was asked to draft conditions to bring back to Council to impose on those approvals that were granted last month.
Thank you.
I'll move that we consider them jointly.
Thank you. Councillor Flannery is moving that we deal with 18.143 and the next item 18.144 as joint items, so thank you for that. So the reports there, councillors, with the conditions there. I'm not going to read out the recommendations at the start of both items and lists all the business behind it, so...
Question, Mr Mayor.
Sorry?
Question?
Question, Councillor Armstrong.
Question to the Director. Condition 35, the intersection of the driveway to Walnut Road shall be offset by a minimum distance of 30 metres long. What's the basis of the 30 metres, given that running going to require seal to 20?
Through the Mayor, these are conditions that have been requested to be imposed by the Roads and Maritime Services when we sought concurrence from the Roads and Maritime Services for approval as this development fronts a regional road. In accordance with our agreement, we directly impose those conditions as provided to us by the Roads and Maritime Services.
Thank you for that, Director. It does seem a bit of overdoing, but if that's been imposed by the RMS, that's been imposed.
Is it consistent with, sorry, a question for the Director, is that consistent with dwellings currently situated on the road?
Through the Mayor, no, there are some other houses that don't have their gateways and driveways set back that far.
Through you, Mr Mayor, a couple of that condition, I tend to agree. That condition of 30 metres, I think's a bit over the top. Considering that if there's a gateway on the road.
What's going on? Okay, sorry. Continue on.
Considering there probably won't be a gateway there, that it will be just a straight in and out access, whereas the offset's usually there for the a B. They usually use 30 metres for a B double if a truck's going into a place like a B double, so it can pull up off the road to open a gate and then drive through. So I think it's a little bit onerous putting 30 metres onto a residential subdivision. The other, even though it is in RU1, RU4. The other condition is the sighting, and I just can't see it here at the moment, but I know there could be an issue with the sighting distance from the driveway of clear sight of, and I'm not sure what it's meant to be on different roads, but I believe it's probably about 150 or 200 metres. If the Director could actually advise me what the distance is because this is a regional road. If it's much over 200 metres, I don't believe that they could actually get a driveway there giving it 200 metres either side.
Thank you, Councillor.
Through the Mayor, I'll first address condition number 35. It's 30 metres from the centre line of the carriageway, so it's not 30 metres from the edge of the road seal. The RMS word their conditions slightly different to what we do. We normally say from the edge of the seal. Or the property boundary. This is 30 metres from the centre line of the carriageway, so it's actually that middle line of the road. So just that point of clarification, it's slightly different to how we normally word them. In relation to the site's distance, I'm sorry, I will have to take that on notice because I don't know what the exact distance is. I believe it's somewhere around 210 to 225, but I can't be absolutely certain. I'm sorry.
Thank you for that.
Thanks for that. I still think probably the 30 metres, even though it is from the centre line, is probably a little bit onerous. But if we can find out the site distance, because I think it does vary between a regional road and a local road system. But and I think one's 200 odd metres, the other one's 100, 150 metres. So there's quite a difference.
Just through, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Armstrong.
condition 35 and 38, just listening to the Director then, condition 38 states, any entry gate to the subject site from the Wombat Road shall be located at least 30 metres from the edge of seal of the carriageway and the property. So we've got a requirement to have an offset of 30 metres from the centre line, and the gate will be 30 metres from the edge of seal. So it is a 30 metres from the edge of seal is for purposes B doubles or something.
Sorry, through the Mayor, the offset for the gate is 30 metres, so should any gate be proposed, it needs to be set back 30 metres, that's what that condition says. But the previous one is the intersection of the driveway and Wombat Road.
Yep.
So bearing in mind that this is coming in from two lots together, yep. So that's the request from the RMS. Be offset a minimum distance of 30 metres along the centre line of the carriageway from any existing driveway or intersection on either side of that road. So basically what that's saying is that if there's a driveway opposite or 30 metres further that way, it's that offset. I'm just looking through the RMS correspondence to see if I can actually see that a site distance, if you just bear with me, please.
Okay, thank you.
So the other question I will ask again is if there's no gate, actual physical gate at the entrance of the driveway, does that make any difference?
Through the Mayor, yes it does. It's any gate shall be set back 30 metres.
So just on the site distance question, the site distance is dependent on the speed environment for the there. So if it's 100 kilometres an hour speed environment, which I think it is along here, then you have a much longer site distance.
Just a question to the Director. Should clause 35 read the intersection of the driveways with Wombat Road, or is that driveway? I mean, I'm not clear on whether it's intersection of two driveways or whether it's, and presumably if there's only one driveway, the driveway must intersect with Wombat Road at the point of Wombat Road. Otherwise you've got a no man's land that doesn't exist. But so presumably it's intersection of driveways with Wombat Road must be at least 30 metres back.
If we consider the two applications together, then it probably will be, yes, because that would remove any opportunity of having the two driveways side by side.
I think that's the only way to go.
And I guess to the question that is the purpose of the report, deferred commencement and with reference to the preparation and submission to Council of an on-site effluent management study. I mean, are we talking about a plumber who might be engaged to do the work to simply draw up plans and show where the effluent will run, or who is a suitably qualified professional? Are we talking about a town planner, a plumber that does septic installations, and what is Council looking for in that report?
So, through the Mayor, we're looking for a geotechnical report. In general terms, the Department of Health says a minimum area of 1 hectare should be the minimum that on-site effluent disposal on a long-term basis is adequate. Anything less than that needs to be demonstrated by the submission of generally a geotech report that says the soil is capable of accepting that effluent on a long term.
Can we put geotechnical report in there, please? People like GeoLise in orange, or there's other people around, but there are.
So that addition's been noted. Thank you.
So, through the Mayor, the RMS have made the note that the location of the shared driveway at the common boundary of the two lots as proposed may not comply with the required site distance criteria for the 100 speed limit, and have put it back to the applicant to comply with the required site distance requirements of the Off-Roads Guide.
Mr Mayor, it's surprising to me that anybody would want to build a house in Wombat with 48 conditions attached to it. Thank you.
Thank you. So the site distance, back to Councillor Manchester's question. Where does that
just
leave us?
on that, so what they actually haven't put any distance there. They're saying for the applicant to get an engineer's design. Yeah.
But through you, Mr Mayor,
Councillor Tuckman.
the confusion is around which standard is being applied. Is it for a regional road or a rural non-regional road? And that will dictate what standard the setback needs to be.
Councillors, I don't know where we're going to end up with this, but we'll give the Director a chance to clarify Councillor Tuckman's question. And if not, this might be another matter that needs to come back.
Through you, Mr Mayor, can I move then that we actually defer this until the August meeting and we find out a bit more information about the actual site distance and any other queries that anyone has?
Seconded.
It's moved by Councillor Manchester and seconded by Councillor Horton that we defer this item till the August meeting so we can have some clarification around the driveways and the site applications.
Can we defer both items, Mr Mayor?
Defer both items as joint items?
Yes.
Thank you. All those in favour? Again, thank you. And staff will have that relevant information together for us in August. So item 18145 we've dealt with. Item 146, development application statistics for June 18. Director of Sustainable Growth would like to talk to that on the recommendations there. Moved by Councillor Horton, seconded by Councillor O'Connor. Thank you. Any questions or comments? If not, I'll move that recommendation. Councillor Tuckman.
Through you, Mr Mayor, just noting that, again, we're continuing to blow out the timeframes. And I am very concerned about that because I don't think it's sending the right message to... So I'm wondering whether we... Can someone explain what needs to be done, or whether as a council we need to make sure that we have enough resources to be able to get these timeframes down?
I might defer that to the Acting General Manager if you'd like to speak to that in regard to that matter, or the Director of Sustainable Growth would like to reply to that.
So, through the Mayor, we have had a new planner start that has been with us now for just on 4 weeks. So these figures are at the end of last month. So we have given additional resources to the department to attempt to bring these processing times down. However, having said that, and having an additional person on staff has also allowed other staff to take leave. So it will be a little while before they come down, I'm sorry.
Your point's taken on board, Councillor Tuckerman, and it's in the matter I've addressed with several business people recently, and we do appear to be under-resourced. I have a question, just in regard to some explanation for me, on an item that change of use of a commercial shed, and it's got to be processed, and it's been there since the 26th of the 6th. How long does it take us to process something as simple as that may be? I don't know what the particular change was. Yep.
Which item is it?
A DA 00095 at the back of the report. commercial change of use.
Given that this report was put together 4 days after, or is up to 4 days after the change of use, it depends on what the change of use is and whether there's any additional fire requirements upgraded or any egress or any other building upgrades required as a result of that change of use. Nonetheless, it takes some time for the files to be made up and come up to the department.
Thank you. Councillor O'Connor.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Just a question for the Director. What does it mean when it says on notification as opposed to be determined? Like, what's the difference?
So, through the Mayor, on notification means that, in accordance with Council's policies, it's being notified to adjoining and potentially impacted property owners. To be processed or to be determined means it's going through its assessment process. So it's come off the notification period and is currently going through its assessment process.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Tuckerman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So just going back to timeframes, so are we looking at putting, obviously I understand staff have to have leave, so are we looking at replacing them with a consultant to try and get these timeframes down?
Director.
Through the Mayor, yes, we have. Unfortunately, consultants are very thin on the ground as well, as are qualified planners. I think this is possibly the third time that we've attempted to get a consultant to help us.
So can I ask a question about the former Harden Shire's councils, which was Sutherland? Are they able to assist in providing some expertise in the area?
Through the Mayor, I've made that request and got an email back on Monday. Unfortunately, they're unable to help us in this regard. They're short-staffed as well. Just following on from that, we did have a meeting with the Department of Planning yesterday, and the department can't attract planners either. It's an industry-wide shortage.
So that's a concern for all councils and for all of us here to look to. Councillor Flannery, you...
Yes, Mr Mayor, whilst those points are noted, given we've spent 10 or 15 minutes discussing the previous two DAs, I think perhaps some of the issue is overcomplicating simple issues. It really, Council approved those two DAs. The process should then be to work with the proponents to say these are the issues that we have to clarify. You need a geotech study regarding the effluent. We need to clarify site distances in the gateway, in the egress and exit locations. Let's just get on with it. I mean, these two DAs are going to be subject to processing because we just haven't got clear guidelines on what we want for the approvals to occur. I mean, I just think a lot of it is bureaucratic nonsense. We've just got to say, this is what we want, this is what we can do to help you. You come back and...
I think you'd get agreement all around the room, Councillor Flannery, that the process hopefully can be simplified and we get to a result without all the delays and the complications. But at the moment, that's where it is. So the recommendation is there. Did I have a mover and a seconder? I did. There's no more discussion. I'll put that. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Item 18.147. Grazing stock on council public roads rural network. The report's there and the recommendations there. Would the acting director like to speak to the report first?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report's been brought forward to the council on the basis that there is a lot of hardship going out there in the community in terms of grazing because of the current conditions, and we've looked at what the options are in terms of how we can work with the landowners to actually graze roadside reserves, but at the same time also maintain traffic safety and protect the assets. So this has been brought to the council on this basis. We've gone down the process of seeing what other councils have been doing in terms of this exercise. We've consulted with 6 other councils, looked at their grazing permits and used that as a basis to develop something that is suitable for this council.
I move into committee, Mr Mayor, on this one.
Moved by Councillor Walsh. We move into committee. Seconded Councillor Flannery. Thank you.
A question then. Oh, you go.
Mine was just a really quick question. So did the LLS in the past determine these grazing things? Because it says here it's got to go back to the LLS.
The LSS have actually not actually assessed them. They've actually just basically given a blanket approval in pretty well every case. I don't think there's been any on-site assessment of the situation, what the issues exist in terms of the road, whether there's biodiversity issues or traffic safety issues. It's been basically just left for them to do a rubber stamping exercise, and this is one of the reasons why it's been brought to our attention. Because none of those issues have been addressed, and we've had a situation where roads have been grazed in more recent times without any real regard for things like public liability insurance, traffic signage or any of those sort of things. So this is why we brought it to your attention.
Mr Mayor, if I may, I may have to declare conflict, but I'll stay for the debate. I don't think I'll vote, but what the Director just said wasn't true. It's patently incorrect, actually. If you look at a media release from Riverina LLS today, there was a driver who was fined by police for not dealing with the stock routes and roads in a proper manner. So I'm actually dumbfounded by his comments, to tell you the truth. But anyway, my question is that previously, and I suppose you've answered to some extent, the LLS issued roadside permits, and I'm not sure about this, but is it true that they issued roadside permits or travelling stock permits for a fee? And is the council, by establishing this policy, is taking revenue possibly from the LLS?
There's no indication in terms of us charging a fee for this at all at this stage. It's just basically providing some form of safety and control for local roads.
Yes, but the advent of this policy is on land that was previously, the LLS previously provided permits for, is that correct?
They have been providing permits on roadside reserves in the past, yes.
Okay, I might excuse myself then, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wallace.
Mr Mayor, as a, I guess as a landholder, or any of us that might have land that fronts a road that someone might graze stock on, or we might graze on it myself, I might graze myself, I guess I need to declare a non-pecuniary conflict of interest, but I do plan to vote on it, or move some changes. I have in front of me a LLS routine stock movement permit, so it's not a grazing permit as such, but the differences between this and the recommended policy are stark in that conditions of a routine stock movement, which basically allows me to graze from sunrise to sunset on any of the specified roads on the schedule, simply lists that I must have a $20 million public liability policy in place. There are no requirements to list the LLS or council on this permit. I don't have to pick up any excrement of animals. I do need to give my neighbours 48 hours notice if I'm, I guess, moving stock slowly up and down the roads. I do need to have signs. They do need to be 300 metres apart. If I'm driving, that's where I'm moving a kilometre or less. If I'm moving up to 5 kilometres, I can't have my signs any greater than 5 kilometres apart, which is pretty much standard policy. So to the extent that we need to adopt a policy, could I move that I hand this policy to the Director? I don't know if we need to move it at this meeting, well then perhaps we should adopt these policies now, but I think things like picking up of excrement, hot wire, I mean they are beyond ridiculous. I don't have a view on high vis, but who's going to enforce it? Do we need to have high vis on the dogs as well? Because I actually think my dogs being run over are a greater hazard than me being run over, to be honest. But I think some of the things like hot wire, picking up excrement, high vis are just, they're absolutely ridiculous, and they're not enforceable. I mean, and all they're going to do is lead to disputes between neighbours. So can I move that we adopt the policy of the LLS?
So that needs to be noted as that was moved while we're in committee, so that needs to be noted, so that when we come out of committee, we can act on that. I'll just bring that. Councillor Horton, we're still in committee.
Mr Mayor, I concur with the Councillor O'Connor. I've had several people phone me in the last week, and I was a farmer many years ago and drove stock on the coast road from Queanbeyan down through Bungendore. So I know a little bit about it. And I couldn't agree more. Picking up droppings from your stock, what do they call it? Hot wired, the roads, for God's sake. If you're on the Hume Highway, the Prince's Highway, that's probably fair enough. But the people that have been ringing me, they run their on a travelling stock reserves, a lot of these roads, and they're just eating the grass. They see a car every now and then, a quiet back road. They're not a danger at all. As Councillor Flannery said, his dogs are more in danger than the people. When they graze, they help reduce the fuel to help us not to have bushfires starting on the roadside. And by eating the grass along these roads, less likely for kangaroos to come over and be grazing on the side of the road. They create a danger to the motorist. So I think it's just ridiculous, hot wiring, and it's a political mad gone mad. It's political correctness gone mad in my book, and I concur with the Councillor Flannery 100%.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Anyone else like to have some input while we're in committee?
Just one comment. I certainly agree with both Councillor Flannery and Councillor Horton. And when you look, these 3 metre hot wires, if you're up north and you've got 100 metres of road reserves, 3 metres you can do it. But around these roads here, you take 3 metres from the side of the road to the fence, and you've got about a metre left to graze your stock. And to picking up the excrements, like if I take my sheep from, which I wouldn't be doing, but because I'm not a shepherd, but if I was taking the sheep down the road, I certainly wouldn't be cleaning up after them and the cattle. And I did speak to the director about this, but I don't have to do it. But someone that's temporary grazing it has to. So I think it's just and I agree with Councillor Flannery that the LES or the PP board issue a permit to the landowners to move stock between properties. If we abide by their conditions, I certainly agree with the public liability insurances and all those things. But the points 2 and 3, I think, we're just creating issues for someone to police by this council, and we're saying we're short of staff. So I'll just leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Manchester. Did you want to clarify a point?
Just clarify one point, that the LLS issue permits for council roads on behalf of the council. It's not that we actually give them the right to do that for us. That's the thing. Yeah, they monitor it. There has been a lot of complaints in the last few weeks, primarily about, I think it's the MURRINGO Road, where there's been one mob that's been actually all over the road, beyond the signs and a few other things which are really causing some issues for people, so they're not being shepherded or herded properly. So it needs to be clarified in terms of that. Using electric tape and stuff like that, in my experience up north, that's because a lot of the roads are in the stock reserves, and highways, it's an insistence of the RMS that that actually occurs, and that keeps them off the highway because of the high-speed environment that's in there. We are probably, local council roads, I think what we're saying here, we need to be mindful in terms of the speed environment, in terms of the highway network that we actually maintain on behalf of the RMS, and that's where some of this may well be coming in that we need to consider.
Thank you for that. Councillor Tuckerman?
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor. So my concern is that we're creating this bureaucratic process where we're doubling up on conditions, and if the LLS are doing that on our behalf now, what stops us from doing a blanket endorsement for them to continue to do that under their leasing or permit regulations? Why do we have to recreate the wheel?
Well, I concur with Councillor Tuckman's point, and I've asked the question. I'm not too sure, but how did this land on our desk is how I put it. I thought the LLS looked after it, but obviously I may have been wrong in my assessment of Director, like to...
Look, in terms of all of the other councils in the area, they actually have got their own policies over and above what LLS provide, and this is to provide initial control and safety in terms of those issues. You know, at the moment the LSS is only really looking at the actual grazing part of it. It's not looking at any other issues in terms of, you know, is there a biodiversity issue, is there road safety issues and those sort of things. And at the moment it's just been a blanket approval in all of those situations, and that's why we've had a situation where in the case of MURRINGO Road, and we've had a number of complaints where it's been pretty unacceptable from the motorist point of view. So we've looked at putting something forward that would actually address some of those issues.
So Mr. Mayor, I think if there is an issue on MURRINGO Road, and it sounds like there is, I think then we contact the LSS to get their ranger to go out there and move them on, or make sure that they abide by the regulation. Now, if they've got cattle out or sheep outside the signaged area, they're at fault of their permits. So, and they all have permits that they must abide by.
Thanks, Councillor Manchester. Any councillor?
Look, I absolutely concur. I mean, if your stock stray beyond your signs, I mean, you're legally liable for any car that hits them. I mean, so it's for us to go and be the policeman above and beyond simply when an accident occurs and then common law takes over, I think is madness. The other thing is, and we seem to be missing the point on, these are permits to graze in front of your property, which the LLS come over the top then with grazing permits for drovers. So we've had a situation throughout this shire in the recent months where there's been a drover moving through the shire. We have no ability to go and pick up their excrement should we so desire. We have no ability to enforce them to put hot wires along. So we've got two classes of citizens. One who pays rates to the council for the privilege of owning land, and a drover who pays sweet FA to the LLS, of which we get no receipt of income and do far greater damage to our road network. I mean, it's just beyond comprehension.
I agree, Councillor Flannery. There's two sets of rules, one for droving cattle, as you know, and one for owners grazing, so there's definitely two sets of rules there. But we need to work out where we're going with this tonight. Director, want to speak to something before we come
Just
out?
through you, Mr Mayor, there is only one inspector for the whole of the Riverina area in terms of managing this process, so that's one.
So they're trying to put the cost back onto us.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thanks for that. Look, we've had enough discussion. Would anyone like more discussion before we come out of committee? Councillor Rolls?
In the discussions I've had with a number of people lately, the two areas that are really worrying them is the number two, the hot wire, and then the excrement. The rest, people seem to be able to cope with. The high vis, I'm not with you there, Councillor Flannery. I'm in favour of high vis on the road. It makes all the difference, I seem to think. But it seems to be those two that are the really sticking points. And in our narrow roads and our back roads, it's different on the MURRINGO Road perhaps, which is I don't know, is that a rural road? But certainly the back roads, I can't see any point. And it's not going to happen. So what are we doing? We're going to make a rule, and how do we enforce it? And people aren't going to follow it.
Thank you, Councillor Rolls. Councillor Tuckerman.
I asked a question about whether we can do a blanket and then ensure that the LLS implement through their processes, which is what they do. That's what they're doing anyway. We're just giving them the approval to do that, aren't we? So if we can do a blanket to say this is going to happen, I'm just wondering, it's got to be an easier way than what this is proposing.
In the past, I've given the LLS the conditions of approval on behalf of the council. So these are the conditions we would want implemented if you issue a permit from there. There are in some cases where we've asked in the past to have stock kept away from intersections, basically because of the excrement issue. It's actually because it provides a safety problem in terms of stopping. And so I think we can, if we want to confirm that we will still have the LLS do the permits on our behalf. We don't have ranges in terms of stock ranges. we can't police it either. I think we need to be very clear in terms of any permit, this is what's required, particularly with signage. And also in terms of, we need also to be very clear in terms of what is the requirement for highway traffic. And that's an issue that we've got to deal with.
Thank you. Look, I think I'll put my 2 bobs worth in there. The 2 issues that's been spoken around the table is the hot tape and the cleaning up of the mess. All the other dot points in the A, B, C through to F, I don't think are too arduous on anyone, but the 2 main issues that we talked about are a bit of a concern. It's just unfortunate that, as I said this morning, that the 5% of people who do the wrong thing make it very hard for the 95% who do the right thing. So, as a council, if we need to send something to LLS to say this is what we'd like to see enforced, we need to clarify that tonight, and maybe if we need to simplify that, and Councillor Flannery's got an amendment when we come out of committee to look at, I suggest we move to that stage. I think we've talked as much in committee as we can, and we need to decide where we're going to go with it. So, someone like to move us out of committee, please?
Move that.
Councillor Manchester, seconded Councillor O'Connor. Thank you. Now, I'll defer back to Councillor Flannery and the amendment that he was going to make to the recommendation.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move specifically we delete clauses 2 and 3 from the stock permit, but I would actually like to move that we adopt the grazing permit of the LLS, which this one is the Riverina LLS, noting that we're actually in 2 LLS zones here. So that our grazing permits have conditions no less than those of the Riverina and I guess Southeast LLSs, and that whether we that's probably the easiest, that we adopt the permits of the LLS, Riverina and Southeast.
Thank you.
Just through you, Mr Mayor, just a comment to Councillor Flannery, whether he'd be happy to endorse Councillor Tuckerman's suggestion of just leaving it up to the LLS to and talk to them about the conditions. We require the conditions, the minimum standard conditions, and just let them police it.
Well, I think that was Councillor Flannery's intent, wasn't it? With
Yes, absolutely it was, and even noting the interested party on a $20 million public life insurance policy. I mean, if you've got a public insurance liability policy, I mean it's as noted on here of a broad form nature and unlimited in aggregate as to the number of occurrences. So I think this covers it. If we have to have our shire noted on the policy, it's just more red tape to follow up. I endorse Councillor Tuckerman's comments, and that we simply adopt the policies and let LLS supervise.
So we need to change what's been typed at the moment. Tony, Councillor Flannery, sorry, you might just go through that again for our penciler, please.
Before you move on, I think the reason for noting it on council on the insurance is the reason it's our road, it's not the LLS thing. It has to be noted as part of that. So, because of any action that takes place on a council road with regard to stock and that, we will be co-named as part of the action. So we would actually, I think our insurers will insist that we actually are co-written into the agreement.
But public liability is public liability. I have public liability which covers me from all range of activities, whether it's driving tractors down a council road or burning off. I mean, the implication of public liability is that it's of the greatest form of liability.
That's correct, but in terms of all you're required to do is to ring your insurer and say, look, I've been required to actually note that I'll be grazing my stock or running my stock up a council road, this council's road, and that they should be noted as on the policy.
Just through you, Mr Mayor, in response to Councillor Flannery's inquiries there, I believe that the interest of council should be noted on that policy, but it doesn't necessarily, the interest of council should be noted, but it need not necessarily be stated upon the policy at the time. The prime issue here is that a certificate of currency is provided to ensure that the insurance is actually in place at that point in time.
Agreed.
So, for the sake of the amendment that's been put, how would you like that worded as of now?
That's what we've got so far.
That the council's policy on stock grazing permits be consistent or as per those of the Riverina and South East LLS.
Stock grazing permit.
Permit, is it, or policy?
Permit. Be as adopted, be consistent with or adopt the policy of the permit of the South East and Riverina LLS. Terms or specifications or whatever you'd like to refer to them as. Conditions.
So, Mr Mayor, through you, are we still asking ratepayers to contact council to fill out this form and then it be given to the LLS? Or are we adopting a policy that is handed to the LLS saying that we approve grazing to be done under their conditions of permit, and then them notifying us who's taken permits out?
May I make a suggestion?
Please, Acting General Manager.
You'll start calling me Councillor Aber soon, but yeah. My suggestion is we continue the current arrangement with the LLS to provide permits for grazing on council roads, and that we request from them particular attention to be paid to the display of signs, and to refer to us in any of the highway networks for a discussion on sensitive environmental areas, because there are some that we've got to protect, and also for control of stock within high-speed environments. That we actually have a discussion about that before the permit is issued, and that we ask for a certificate of currency be forwarded to us and a copy of the permit be forwarded to the council when it's issued. Do you want me to repeat that?
That should go. That should be the precedent.
So what was the one about the...
Particular attention to the display of stock signs, because that's a big issue.
And then the next one was to do with...
Well, certificate of currency was one. Also, I think it was the council should be notified with regard to, before the permit issue, for any input on environmentally sensitive areas, and also the traffic requirements with that. Because one of the issues, I think, is that even if in my past we've actually allowed the drovers to keep the stock off the road, but they need to sort of keep. I think the practice that I'm observing here is that they just let it wander up, straight up the middle of the road, and so I think we just need to have some consultation before the permit is issued on what are the conditions the council would actually require, if we have any. On local roads, we probably would show no interest. Yeah.
Well, I beg to differ. Just an example would be the GULLY along MURRINGO Road, the back road.
Oh, yeah.
Had been graded and done up. It was actually a fantastic job, best job that's been done. And there was stop grazing, and after it rained, and it has decimated it.
Yep. That's one of the conditions I would be looking at in terms of wet weather. They have to be moved off the road, for gravel roads.
Look, I concur with those comments. However, the issue is, and I don't know that specific mob of cattle, but there's been droving cattle go through this shire and they have decimated some of the back roads, and we have no authority to act there. The LLS is the consent authority, so we're putting conditions in. It should be a general...
Actually, we are the consent authority. They are actually doing it on our behalf.
Well, then they're not acting. I mean, I've rang them numerous times about...
Well, and that's the dilemma we're in. Actually, we actually are, what we should be asking for, as I'm indicating here, is that we need to be advised first that they've got a request to issue a permit on our roads, and actually provide any conditions we need to apply to that permit before it's issued.
So just to...
Rather than us having another separate process. Yeah.
Deirdre, just before we go too far, really that it says, my understanding of what we're now all agreeing is that council continue with the current arrangements, so perhaps that should say council continue to delegate permit authorisation to LLS.
We'll get it straight there. Yeah.
To delegate authorisation of permits to LLS, and then we list what our concerns are.
Yeah. I did say that, but I think the first point is that council should be asked to provide conditions of approval prior to the issue of a permit. Well, that would satisfy everything else then.
What was it, David?
Just take out a particular attention, and that the LES provide prior to the issuing of a permit request any particular conditions from the council prior to the issuing of the permit.
Mr Mayor, could I just ask a question of the General Manager, please? The LLS, is that the Old Pasture Protection Board?
Yes.
Thank you.
In a former life, yes.
Ask the council for any...
Any conditions of approval to be actually included on the permit.
Through you. One of the conditions, one of the discussion points I had with the director was the length of the stock grazing, and I think it's mentioned in here somewhere of about 1 kilometre, and I think that's probably a reasonable distance, not 3 or 4 kilometres that the director did mention to me.
Thank you. How are we going with our amendment?
Is that what you wanted to move, Councillor Flannery?
Well, just about wait for him to finish up for Councillor Plenary to ask him if that's we're still they've changed everything, they've taken things out. I know. Is that what you want?
Seek conditions and seek from the council. We'll tidy it up.
Did you want
the
those
specific
items
things,
on
no,
the
I actually came back. I think it's far easier to actually seek specific conditions for the road, right? Because some of those things, we don't want a blanket thing anyway. Yeah, yeah. But there may be environmentally sensitive zones that should be wide off. Yeah.
Okay, councillors, help me at the mover of the amendment. Councillor Flannery, are you happy with what's been placed up? Oh, it's still being worked on, I'm sorry.
There you are, done.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Have I got a seconder for that amendment? Councillor O'Connor, thank you. We need to come out of committee, exactly, thank you very much. It was done in committee. Out of committee, Councillor Horton, moved. Councillor Tuckelman, second. No, we weren't. Yes, sorry. We were out of. Thank you very much, Director. That's the General Manager and the Director both had to go up to the Mayor tonight, but that's okay. Thank you. So we'll go back to where we were. We're a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Again. So be it. Councillor Wallace, yeah.
Mr Mayor, I just apologise for not making that declaration earlier. The way the report read, I didn't think I would have one, but as events unfolded, I realised I may. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace, and that's the way to do things. If you feel at the time that there's one there, that's fine. We're on to 18148, Playgrounds Update for Information. Director of Infrastructure, would you like to speak to that report?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report just was brought back to make the adjustment to the tenders from the previous meeting we had, where we were looking at adjusting the tender to remove the two playgrounds in the playground and gear in Harden. So it's just giving you an update on the fact that the tender is happy to adjust the price accordingly so it can be accepted.
Move the recommendation, Mr Chair.
Moved by Councillor Manchester, seconded Councillor Horton. Questions, comments? Councillor O'Connor.
Just a question, Director. Does that mean that the Harden playground equipment will still be sourced from the same place and be consistent with the same stuff that's going in Boorowa?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Look, at this stage there's no commitment that the playground equipment needs to come from the same company, but that's something we can consider once we've got plans to develop that playground in that area once the master plan's been completed.
Thank you for that. Any questions or comments? If not, I'll move the recommendation. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Item 18149, review of Newson Park rudimentary tree assessment report. Again, as said by the Director of Infrastructure. I'd like to speak to that report that's there.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report's been brought forward based on the discussions on the removal of a tree at the last month's meeting, where there was a request made to get a better understanding of all the trees that were of an issue at this particular park. And you'll notice in the report that the report has actually done two assessments, both in June 2016 and again 2017, looking at all the trees. The actual recommendation is looking at three of the high-risk trees being removed and three being replaced. You'll notice that there is a plan showing the outlying locations of all the trees referred to as attachment 1, and there's a program in terms of a three-stage step to make the adjustments and trimming and replacement of trees as specified. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that, Director. The report's there, councillors, and the recommendation. Any questions or? Councillor Horton's moved the recommendation. Seconder, Councillor Rolls, thank you.
Mr Mayor, just a couple of questions.
Councillor Henry.
I think I was concerned about trees being cut down in and around Harden, and then the bases of it can be pretty thin, and I think we even saw that in Boorowa during the week. But I thank the Director for his report. I don't know that I can... Look, it gets to be frustrating that as soon as a tree has a few limbs dying back, that in come the saws and they cut them down. However, I do note that some of the trees listed here are very sick and diseased and do need to be cut down. Is there a plan for the replacement to be in any... If you look at the photo on, I don't know what page it is, but anyway, the plan there, you can see that there's two basic curves to how the trees were planted once upon a time. There used to be a basic structure to the tree planting there. Trees have since died. Playground equipment's been put in. It's become very ad hoc. It's quite a aesthetically pleasing playground and park, and you do get kids' birthday parties there throughout summer and spring, but it's now turning into just a bit of an ad hoc mess. So I would like to see a bit of a planting plan, and for most of my life there was even a garden maintained at the front that said Newson Park, which is now just a bit of a weed bed. Really, if it could be reinstated to what was once quite a lovely park, that would be a far better outcome than just simply cutting down trees and putting them wherever someone thinks. So that was really the intent of my initial request. Whether we need to refer it back to a garden committee or the people that are doing Murrumbula Creek for a bit of a basic design plan with the replanting, but it does want some planning part of it, please.
Your comments taken on board, Councillor Flannery, in regard to that ongoing matter. So we're back to the report and the recommendation that's there. Any other questions or not? I'll put the recommendation then. All those in favour? Again, so be it. Item 18.150, tree removal at Burrawa Library. As we all know, there's been a development that happened there, but I'll let the Director speak to that before we deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, first of all, I have to apologise that work has actually taken place on this tree before being brought to this council meeting tonight. I must admit, the first I knew of anything happening was when I got rung at 8:10 on Monday morning to say something had actually happened, and steps were put in place to stop it straight away. So I did actually speak specifically to the contractor who was doing the work, and there was obviously a communication issue. What did take place was that rather than stop the work there and then in the spot and leave the thing in a dangerous position, we agreed that we would actually remove the dead limbs on the other side of the tree at the same time. I have to say the results are actually quite good, and my suggestion would be, well, at this point in time, it's tidied the thing up, it's removed the safety hazard, and I'd be suggesting that perhaps there's a different recommendation that perhaps the existing tree in the form that it is in remain in the meantime, and let steps take place to look at how we look at providing a replacement at some time in the near future.
Thank you for that, Director. So there's such opportunity there on the table for an amendment to this recommendation. If someone would like to do that or think about that.
Just three, Mr. Mayor. I'm just concerned that we have a tree inspection and risk assessment form provided to Council that rates a hazard rating score of 10 out of 12 and an intervention level of high. If we vote to do nothing about it at all with this in front of us, where does that put us in regard to any events that may transpire with that tree in the future?
We just do another assessment.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think the issue is we can do another assessment. The tree has actually been severely pruned. I think it's worth looking at the photographs that you see. There's a number of 6 photographs being shown of the tree. The underlying issues there are some serious issues at the trunk, but again, the bulk of the heavy material which had already died has been removed. And we're now back down to that green vegetation. So I think the risk assessment would truly reflect that if and when it's done.
Councillor Tuckerman. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Councillor Tuckerman.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like, with all due respect, to disagree with the Director. The limbs that were cut down from the tree, were pruned, were severely spongy inside, so there is certainly a great deal of risk to keep the tree as it is. I believe that the tree should be removed wholeheartedly now, and advanced trees replace.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman. So there's a recommendation there at the end of the report.
Just questions.
Question, Councillor Armstrong.
Director. I also note upon the same tree inspection and risk assessment form that there is a bifurcation in the tree. Is that likely to result in a subjunction occurring in the main body of the trunk?
Yes, that's still a possibility, but I think the big issue is a lot of the bulk of the tree has been removed down to quite a low level. Look, the remaining life of the tree isn't that high, and really it comes down to, do we actually remove it now and get it over and done with, or do we actually want to preserve it for a few years? I think that's really the issue.
My feelings are that nothing lasts forever, and perhaps this tree has reached that number.
It's had its day.
And not only that, just the risk to users of the library. We have young children that sit under that tree reading stories. When Santa comes to visit, I'm very concerned that if we leave it in the condition that it is, that there will be great risk to the public. I do have another question, if you don't mind, Mr Mayor, and that is this contractor was contracted to remove the tree. Were there any other trees that he was contracted to remove that council are not aware of?
There was one other tree, I understand, but that's not happening until the report comes to council.
Is it true that other trees have been removed before council has given approval?
Not that I'm aware of.
Can you find out if that's the case, please?
It's noted, Councillor Tuckerman, thank you. So
I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you. Moved. Councillor Tuckerman, looking for seconder. Seconded, Councillor Armstrong. All those in favour? Aye. Again? So be it. Thank you, councillors. And the Director will chase up the inquiries from Councillor Tuckerman for us. 18-151. Burrawa Recreation Park toilets. Again, I'll go to the Director of Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report's been brought forward on the basis that there is actually an intention to replace the toilet block in Pudman Street, and in reviewing the work that's proposed to take place shortly, there was questions asked as to whether this particular toilet block should be considered in the similar location to where the existing one is, or whether consideration should be given to making it more accessible to the All Abilities playground. And as a result of that, this report's been brought forward to suggest that do we actually look at considering any new toilet block at the All Abilities playground.
Thank you for that.
The question, if I may, how does that affect the travelling traffic that may go through, or tourists or whatnot that use that existing toilet?
The one I think that in Pudman Street is the one that's normally used by the travelling public, and that's one of the issues that exists. There is a small old toilet adjacent to the All Abilities playground. The issue is that it's not compliant in terms of all disabilities at this point in time, and the issue is, do we actually want to have two toilets within 355 metres of each other, or do you want to look at the issue of having something that does provide a more compliant toilet arrangement at the All Abilities playground?
Councillor Tuckerman.
Mr Mayor, removing the old toilet, the current brick one, which is near the council chambers, you would do so at your peril. It has always been a bone of contention for council. It's a historic toilet, believe it or not. I would like to think that a new amenities building is being built on Pudman Street, and that it is only 355 metres away from the park, and that we make the accessibility to that toilet by putting a path off the main path so it can be easily accessed by those wishing to use the accessible toilet, rather than put good money into building another toilet block which we have to maintain, and etc, etc. So that would be my preferred option, that we make it by building a path to the new toilet block that's going to be built there shortly, and it's accessible for everyone.
Okay, Councillor Tuckerman's indicated that an amendment to that recommendation. Do we want to get that worded up, Councillor Tuckerman, for you? Am I correct in thinking that?
It's a bloody...
So what I'm doing is moving a motion,
Okay.
not doing an amendment.
Yep,
I'm moving
okay.
a motion because it's only a recommendation what's been put forward by
Yep.
staff. I'm moving a motion that a path be built off the main path so people are not using the road. So somehow we're wording it that a path be built to the new amenities building,
Which will be located in Putnam Street.
which is located in Putnam Street. Yes. So at the moment, they would have to go along the path, go off the path onto the road to be able to get to the path. So what we're doing is a backdoor path that goes to the new building.
And leave the old one there.
Yeah, and don't touch the other one.
And those toilets are bloody ugly. Can't we copy the ones like they've got in Harden and Cootamundra?
Yeah, they're nice. Good point.
Question, Councillor Tuckerman, could you just advise, are there currently disabled toilets or disabled facilities and or a baby change room in those old toilets?
Yes.
Are they serviceable?
In the Pudman ones or the...
In the Pudman ones, yeah.
So the Pudman ones, they have a change table and there is a disabled toilet, but they are being replaced under grant funding, so they're very old. So are you talking about the one that's near the council chambers and the playground?
Pudman Street.
No, so you're talking about the Pudman, which will be the new amenities block. So the path will link up with the main path that comes through the park over the bridge to the playground.
That's right.
So where are the historic toilets?
The ones near the council chambers. It's only a very small one toilet.
That wording of that motion, Councillor Tuckerman, to...
So that's effectively a path from here to here. She's going to cut off.
Yep, that sounds good.
Thank you. We've got a motion, Councillor Tuckerman. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor O'Connor. Thank you. Can I have your attention, councillors, please? We've got a motion with a mover and a seconder. Does anyone else like to speak to it or against it?
Just a question.
Question, Councillor Horton.
To the Director, through the Mayor. Do we have any idea what the path will cost?
Not at this stage, but it would be in the order of 350 odd metres, so we'd have to just work out a price on that and come back to you.
No, it won't be 350 metres. It's coming off the main path. So there's 350 metres of pathway to the road on Pudman Street. So there will be a smaller path off that main to link up with, which you're talking probably about 20 metres.
No.
Thank you for that clarification. We've got a second. It was seconded by Councillor O'Connor.
Just one comment.
Councillor Manchester.
The design of it, we look at doing something similar to what the new one that we used in the park.
I believe the Director's noted some notes there as he is going along about those regards.
Well, we won't need to, because we'll put a path instead.
So at the moment, that's the motion that's on the board, councillors. Anyone like to speak against that or for it? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you, councillors. Item 18.152, Burrawa Showground Precinct Financial Update. And there's a comprehensive looking report there. And who would like to speak to that? The Director of Infrastructure?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I have provided a very comprehensive report on what the situation is in terms of funding. What I've tried to do is outline where the various funding sources have come to, and that's on page 66, and what the status is as we work through. You'll see in terms of the amenities building, the first two items show the actual amount that's been approved in terms of the grants and what's been spent to date. The next two items are under the stronger communities of 81,000 and 41,000. Those are grants that we're still waiting to hear the results of. The first one being for enclosing the deck with the glass folding doors, and the second one is for the commercial kitchen. We've then gone through and worked through each of the various items that make up the actual overall showgrounds development project. I've then turned around and given you an outline as to what the costs are of the construction in terms of the project, and that's highlighted on page 67. And that's showing that the original construction cost was 1.52, and there's been a number of changes as we've gone through, and it's got to 1.66. We've then talked about what some of those additional variations are that has resulted in an over expenditure being forecast at this point in time. You should note that on page 68, the last two items are the 81,000 and the 41,000. Those are funding applications which are still pending the outcome of in terms of that work, and obviously that work hasn't been committed at this point in time, but is still shown as part of that project should we wish to proceed ahead of receiving the funding, or hold off until such time as the funding is received. I have been advised that we should be hearing the results of that at any stage in the near future. But at the moment we're still forecasting a project completion in the not too distant future. Then moved on to look at how the breakdown of those additional costs, what's resulted in that, and that's been highlighted on page 69 to give you a breakdown of that. And then there's been a summary of the overall improvements taking place on page 70. I think the only thing that hasn't been covered, which has also been mentioned, is what we do with the women's netball toilets. They're about to be connected to the system, and the issue is, do we actually, while we're there, spend any additional funds to tidy them up and refurbish it to complete that exercise as a total project. I'm happy to answer any questions and take it from there.
Thank you very much, Director. Okay, councillors, the report and the recommendations there. Any questions or comments on Councillor Tuckerman?
A couple of questions, please, Mr Mayor. First of all, I'd like to know where the Bendigo Bank grant is accounted through the funding, $100,000. Has it been accounted?
I'll have to take that on notice because I'm not aware of that at this stage.
Okay. Next questions, if you don't mind, Mr Mayor, if you
fine.
indulge me.
Fine.
The amount of monies allocated from the club grants, you add those up and they come to $1,086,210.93. First point. Second point is, why do we need gas?
All of the heating for the hot water heating in the new building is actually gas. It's not electrical, and
which begs the question why it wasn't accounted for in the first place. Okay, the ancillary costs, can you tell me, there's $80,000 left, approximately $80,000. Can you tell me what that's been allocated to out of the 141,817? Sorry, there's been $6,000 already completed, or $65,000 already completed. So it leaves us with about $80,000. Do you know what that's been allocated to?
excuse me, on what page can I?
So in regards to the ancillary costs which are listed, there's been an amount of, out of the club's grants, of $141,000 allocated from the club's grants. There's been $65,000 already completed. I'm wondering where the other $80,000 has been targeted for.
You're talking about the auxiliary works on page 70?
Auxiliary works,
yep.
Yeah.
141,871, yep.
I'll have to take that on notice because I'm not aware of that, those details at this stage.
So the precinct works, which $112,000 have been allocated from the club's grants funding. There's been $18,492 already spent. Can you tell me where the rest of that money is allocated to?
The amount that's been spoken about is there, underneath that. And Councillor Tuckerman, can you just explain where you've got the amounts that have been spent from for?
In the table, called Table 1, summary of projects being undertaken as part of the overall Burra Showgrounds upgrade.
Thank you.
So I guess my point is there has only been $350,000 spent already. So I want to know where the rest of the money has been allocated and why we can't juggle that money to be able to complete the building without having to get more money. So I need to know what monies are allocated out of the ancillary budget, precinct works budget. I also note there's been $121,000 allocated to the Pony Club Arena. We are expecting, we've put in an application to the Stronger Country grants for $520 for a Pony Club Arena. That's $640,000 to a Pony Club Arena. I find that absolutely ridiculous. I've seen no plans about that. I think that $121,000 can be put back to the amenities building. I think, so that's $121,000 that can be put to those extra costs. I think we need to find out where the Bendigo Bank grant, so there's $220,000. We need to find out where the ancillary money of $80,000 left is being spent and the extra $80,000 from the precinct works and whether that can be put into those extra costs. So I think there's a little bit of work to be done on where exactly this money is being spent and some project management around it and some more information provided to Council before we endorse anything.
Thank you, Councillor.
Can I also make another point, Mr Mayor? I'm sorry for hogging the limelight. In regards to the $55,000 that's been asked for upgrading the toilets, are you aware, Mr Director, that there's already dual flushing systems in the majority of the toilets? The only ones that don't have a dual flushing system is the netball toilets, which consists of 4. That the most of the toilets are brick facade, and I really don't think it's worthy of painting the brick because it's only creating more maintenance. The only real upgrade, there's been lots of upgrades done to those existing change rooms, including new tiles. The only thing that I can see that needs to be done is perhaps new doors and the framework painted around those doors, but the majority of those probably could do with a good clean, but I don't think there needs to be $55,000 spent on it.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? Councillor Wallace.
I move we defer this matter, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Wallace has moved that we defer this matter, and Councillor O'Connor's second that motion.
Happy to provide those questions if we've had trouble getting them all. So,
thank you, Councillor Tuckerman. Given that the commentary by Councillor Tuckerman and some questions and local knowledge asked, I think a deferment would be a pretty smart idea by Council and give the Director and staff time to reply to those questions. Having said that, all those in favour of the deferment, again, so be it. Thank you, Councillors. Item 18153, Burra Urban Growth Depot relocation and alterations. The report's there, and again, the Director of Infrastructure, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I was asked to have a look at this particular project. I wasn't aware of a lot of the background to it, other than the fact that there was an option to consider the relocation of the depot from its current location to a site on Little Street. When I was first asked to look at this, I went through the cost estimate to see what sort of dollars we're looking at, and found that it was considerably higher than what was originally indicated, and I thought it was important that this information came back to the Council to give the council an understanding as to what the cost may well be going down that path. As part of that exercise, I made a request to look at what is the cost of redeveloping the existing site as an option instead, and we provided an indicative cost of that without having done any real work in terms of considering how it may well be laid out. In earlier discussions this week, I was made aware that there had been some previous layouts done that involved a site adjacent to the one in Little Street, which fronted both Little Street and Long Street, and I had a look at some of those concept plans. I haven't been able to find any cost estimates associated with that, but at the end of the day, the use of this particular site, whether it be the Long Street Little site or the Little site on its own, would still be considerably more expensive than the suggested option of actually redeveloping the actual current site. So really this report's been brought forward to get an understanding as to where council wishes to go in terms of this particular project.
Councillors, the report's there, and there's a recommendation to discuss options and make a recommendation as to proceeding with this project. I'm open to the floor.
Mr Mayor, just a question. I note on page 76 it lists loan funds. I thought we removed the loan funds from the budget, so that's not actually, that wasn't agreed as part of a long-term...
That's correct.
Through the Mayor, the Director, the proposed, or the suggestion that we redevelop the Bryall Street depot, what sort of condition is that? I haven't been to look at the building. Is it in bad state or bad state of repair?
There's a number of buildings that can be reused, and there's a number that can be repurposed, but there is quite a number of the older buildings that do need to be demolished and rebuilt. One of the things that's worth looking at is trying to repurpose as much as we can and redevelop it in a form that will actually allow us to have something in the longer term, and that's really the aim of bringing this to the council now. Yeah. Obviously, if the council wishes to pursue this particular option in detail, we would come back with more detailed concept plans and more accurate cost estimates.
Yeah, thank you, Director. Just through the Mayor, I certainly wouldn't be in agreement of spending $3,191,000 to relocate a depot for an area the size of the former Bora Shire. I'd lean towards the $1.085 million to redevelop the Bryall Street depot, if in fact it needs all that money spending on it. But I think, you know, our Hilltops budget could look healthier than it does, and this we just can't afford $3 million plus, and we probably can't afford $1 million. But I think that's my option would be the Bryall Street redevelopment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Councillor Tuckerman.
Thank you.
To turn yours off, John. Councillor Horton, please.
Thank you, and again I apologise for a number of questions. I'm pretty disappointed with this report. I think it's a report that's written to have a certain outcome, and I think the prices are just ridiculous. I do note that $700,000 has been allocated to the remediation of the depot, when in the report it states between $200,000 and $500,000. I asked the General Manager when this was last brought to Council whether we could have a discerning look at what was planned in regards to the depot and the sheds. I don't think that's been done. I find it ridiculous that we have office fit-outs times 10, which implies to me there's going to be 10 different offices in the depot. I'd like to know a little bit more about whether it's possible to put the depot on the Long Street site, where it was originally proposed, and what those figures might look like. There are a number of buildings on the old site that can be reused, so I'm just wondering whether we're going for the Taj Mahal or whether we're actually recreating what's actually occurring at the current site. or are we just going for the big wish list? It appears to me that someone doesn't want to do this job, so let's make it very non-appealing to council to make a judgment. I think there's a lot more work to be done in regards to clarifying some of these figures for a start, having a look at the site. And can I say I find it absolutely appalling that a report has been put forward that we look at remediating the current site at a price of $1.6 million. How ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And I think we should really have a really good think about the fact that this money that we've been allocated, needs to be spent in a proper way that is improving our urban growth. And if this is not going to sway this depot, there's certainly another project that will, but I won't mention that just yet because that might be gone to straight away. I really would like to do some more work on whether this is a possibility because it's of a great significance to that area in Burrawa and would be a very worthy project to complete.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman. Councillor Flannery?
I think, Mr Mayor, the first thing we need to do is establish whether there's any contamination issues with this site. It's been discussed a few times. Once we do the necessary test boring and sampling, we can then make a very clear judgment, or a more informed judgment anyway, on what the options are. If there's very little or no decontamination, if there's very little or no contamination and it simply requires removal of topsoil from one particular area, which I would have thought council would have the resources to do, then it's probably within the means that we have to consider redeveloping and relocating. If there's contamination issues, I think the choices are far more limited.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Stadmiller.
Mr Mayor, can I just ask, has there been a Hilltops-wide audit done on all of the services depots at the moment, and why do we seem to be pushing ahead with the issues with Burrawa when there are very similar issues in Murringbo, where the back of the depot also has a connection to the CBD and shop fronts, and on the other side residential issues? What are the issues with Young? Can we get a full report, please?
Councillor Stadmiller, I'll probably address that. The reason that the one depot in Burrawa has been looked at and discussed about is the allocation of grant funding, amalgamation funding. At the time, was allocated towards that project, so we need to give that project close consideration to see whether it was relocated or whether it was refurbished where it is, and that's why the effort and the work's gone into that, because there's been $1 million allocated to that project. And I think I agree with Councillor Tuckman, this needs to be looked at closely and it needs to be brought on the table so it can be definitive for council to say yes, this is within the realms of our finances, or it is not, and that money needs to be put to maybe another project or worked on refurbishing where it is, and that's what the discussion's about now. But the reason we're focusing on the Burrawa depot is for that reason.
Mr Mayor, I'm confused. I can't work out whether we're going to spend $1 million building a new depot or whether we're going to spend $1 million doing some urban redevelopment for Burrawa. Its title was titled urban redevelopment, urban growth. Urban growth. Yet clearly it's a new depot. Why wasn't it called new depot instead of urban growth? Is that misleading, or?
I guess the point, Mr Mayor, through you, if I may, is that it was subdividing and selling off the blocks as residential blocks. There's your urban growth. To do that, you have to move the depot.
Thank you for that clarification. Yep. Councillors, we're discussing options and talking about that we need to probably have a motion or a recommendation put to staff as to where we'd like to go with this, and I'm open to...
I move that we expedite getting extensive soil test, geotechnical...
Slow down.
Geotech testing done, as per we're expecting our developers to do with their effluent systems, and bring back those reports to council, though, so then we can more fully consider the relocation or redevelopment options.
It's just a question, does the council want a geotechnical report or a contamination report? Because I think that they'd be entirely different issues. In that one may look at the potential for contaminants, and the other one may look at the potential for water to move through the ground.
I was inferring you need a geotechnical consultancy firm to do the testing. Obviously, it has to be a contamination report.
Thank you.
It's a contamination.
So, Mr Mayor, there's already been some contaminations work done around the fuel tanks. So we don't need to revisit that because there's already been stuff done. That's why the old council chambers fuel tanks were removed and the site remediated. There's currently bores at the council depot tanks which are not showing any signs of contamination. So I'm assuming that the only work we need to do is the soil that's currently on the depot around the other sites.
Through you, Mr Mayor, there was some decontamination removed around the old weeds area and a tank removed. Yes, there is 2 bores being put in the adjacent to where the existing underground fuel tanks are on the depot, but there's been no testing done in that area. The site had previously been used as a wool store, and there's been no other contamination investigations done on the remainder of the site.
Was it
an old wool store? Wool store. That's where the actual fleet workshops are at the moment. There's the big old wool store right near the corner where I think it was an old hotel. But none of the other site has actually been investigated, and there's been no monitoring done since those bores were put in some time ago around the existing fuel tank.
Thank you, Director. Okay, councillors. Councillor Flannery, who put that up. Are you happy with the wording of what's on the board now, councillor?
Yes, thank you.
Could I move an amendment to that,
Councillor Wallace?
Mr Mayor, to the effect that I think we need some oversight or external study, maybe it's subsequent to this, but of the costings in this document, because some of the costs in there for earthworks and stormwater drainage just seem to me excessive. So I'd be moving that subsequent to the geotech, or maybe it comes back to council, but otherwise we could get some sort of cost assessor, I don't know what you call them, quantity surveyor, something like that, to assess the cost, because I don't believe them.
So, are you happy enough to let this go where it is, and then we look at that? Okay, thank you for that. We have a seconder for what's on the board? Seconded, Councillor Horton. Okay, councillors, so is any other discussion or comment about that? If not, I'll put it. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Thank you, councillors. Takes us on to just before I'll jump in here before we go to the Hilltops Works report, which is 15.154. I actually missed earlier on in all the excitement having councillors' reports go round. So I thought maybe we might do that now before we go on to the next one. And I'm sorry I missed that earlier on in the proceedings. But if Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, I've got absolutely nothing to report, Mr Mayor, although what I can say is that the waste management and the sewer and water services in the Hilltops region are far better than most of what I witnessed in India.
It's always good to get a rap, and we'll take that. Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Rolls.
Remember where I've been this month. I know I went to a wind farm meeting and a cultural meeting and the Geelong Village meeting, which was a lovely meeting to go to. And I have also been involved in the Hilltops Innovation, the Incubator Hub, further meetings with that, and last night visiting the Harden Country Club. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rolls. Councillor Stadmiller.
Last night I visited the council chambers at Harden for the country club presentation for plans for a very large new facility in the coming years, and I don't know whether it's because I have an office in the main street or not, but I seem to be having a lot of meetings with constituents over matters, including the Gaylong Home, the Whitten Lane in Harden, Allsop Street, Swift Street water mains replacements, where council needs to come back and do some remediation on where the water pipe burst, and I met with a lady regarding a possible future development at Currawong.
Thank you, Councillor Stadmiller. Councillor Armstrong.
Meetings limited, just for those duty on community meeting, went very well. The library steering committee meeting, approved the trust for art and country club redevelopment information briefing, and 6 readings.
Thank you. Councillor Horton.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. 5th of July, Gaylord Progress Association meeting. That they elected new office bearers. Some of the concerns there with the roofing leak in the room adjacent to the main hall. Water coming through there and going through electrical wires. Quite unsafe to be immediate attention, I think. They're concerned, well not concerned, they want to be sure that the $80,000 of Belco money is spent in Galen on the rent facilities in Galen and nowhere else. The barbed wire fence adjacent to the hall, and apparently very dangerous, especially for children. Like the microphone and the amplifier, the Progress Association for the various activities they have around the area. It was a good meeting, and a good year there. The 9th of July, hard meeting, one-on-one with the Mayor, and I found that very beneficial. Quite good. I'd like to see more of that. 13th, Harden meeting with Mr Peter Blackney. He's the new post manager or post office owner in Harden. He's a pretty spot-on guy in my book, probably a perfectionist. He's concerned with the safety and health of some of the buildings in Neil Street, in the main street. So I made another day to go back and inspect those with him. On the 17th, Cultural Education Precinct Steering Committee meeting. Another good meeting. We might be having a bit too close together in the future at this point. 18th. On the 18th, the Geogong Advancement Group and Community Workshop. That was a great meeting, plenty of councillors there, and Steph Cook was there. Good news for the villagers, the grant money. They're thrilled out there that they'll get their new kitchen pretty soon, so that was a really good meeting, and they're happy there. Some of the things that they, well, as we know, there's a streetscape on the agenda once we get the money to do it. But the things that they are concerned with, and in my book, they're very, very genuine concerns. They want the planting of trees, parking spaces for vehicles. A lot of tourists up there, as we all know, with the pub and the Long Track Cafe there attracts a lot of people through there, weekends in particular. They want pedestrian footpaths. They want footpath and street lighting. It's dark as dark out there for night time. Provide truck stop areas to get them out of the way. And as I said, they're very thrilled with the new grants for the money that they're going to get out of that grant. And as we know, councillors' priority is to get that sewage going out there. So that was that particular one. On the 19th, the second meeting and building inspection with Peter Blackney, the post office guy. He went around, he showed me the various buildings and his concerns, and they're quite genuine, I think. And I've spoken briefly with Mr General Manager, and probably next week we'll make a time to discuss it more and to get direction, what action to take there. On the 20th, a review meeting of expressions of interest for the General Manager's position. Those of us on that committee went through the expressions of interest, and we're down, I believe, at the 6 that we'll be interviewing next week. On the 24th, Harden Hilltops office, meeting of community to be updated on the priorities of the proposed new golf sports club over there. The idea is that the tennis club will come up with the proposed golf club. It's going to cost $8 or $9 million, probably, around that mark. And whilst it's being built, the existing golf club will stay there, the golf house, the golf, what do they call it, golf club, the golf club. It'll stay there, and then when the new one's built, the old one will be demolished. It's the 24th, 25th LEP committee meeting this afternoon, our first meeting. 6 of us, I think, councillors were there, and 3 Rotary meetings, and the Hilltops meeting tonight.
Thank you.
And out.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Councillor Flannery.
Meetings as minuted, and I can't remember what else I went to. I do reiterate Councillor Horton's comments about Galen. The barbed wire fence actually separated the playground, I think, from the old disused railway line, and they said kids are getting tangled in it occasionally. Look, it's questionable whether it's up to, it separates the hall and playground. They've been asked to give a 50-50 co-contribution, and I did ask whether it was private landowners that the barbed wire fence was on. I didn't get a clear answer on that, but we might follow that up, whether it's all council property or whether it is some private landowners there. But in any event, apparently it's quite dilapidated, so perhaps we should look at that. Once again, it does sound like, I think there's a grant application for the roof. I'm not sure on that, but water coming down through the light sockets is obviously a WHS issue, so regardless of whether that's a grant application or whatever, we need to deal with that. They want to know what's happening with the 10-year strategic plan. I'm not too sure what else I went to. That sounds like I'll give a report on all the days I went and did other things. Perhaps Horton could tell us when the days he has off. I'd be very interested in what he does on those days.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Walker.
Meetings as minuted. I think most of the other reports have been through other councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Manchester.
The meetings that have been minuted, and also did a Prime News interview regarding the St Lawrence home out of Gaylong and the GM shortlisting.
Thank you. Councillor O'Connor.
Fairly quiet month this month. I had a good meeting with people who wanted to tell Steph Cook and councillors about their issues with wind farms. Library Steering Committee. I spoke to about a dozen recipients of grants after Steph Cook announced the amalgamation funds and the extra grants, and they were all ecstatic. In fact, one person from Wombat cried on the phone. She was that ecstatic about it. The Jugeong Village meeting was excellent. We had our first cull of the CVs for the general manager's contract, Harden Visitor Information Centre meeting, and having a look at the Harden Country Club plans last night. I'd like to put in a community recognition award for Tony and Helen Buckler, or Helen and Tony Buckler, whichever way.
Have you got that documented?
Yep.
Okay.
Just receiving a score of 5 on the Scores on Doors program.
Thank you for that, Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Tuckerman.
Meetings as minuted, but just a few highlights that I'd like to certainly put forward. We were presented with a $5,000 cheque for the Blokes Night Salamander Recycling. So they come from up near the Central Coast and are connected to one of the people that are presenting on the night. This is a great night, and I encourage and invite all male councillors to attend the night. I think it's going to be a brilliant night. It's happening on Friday in Burrawa. We are always being encouraged by the men of the community to put on an event similar to the Women's International Day event, and this is the result of that after some funding that was put forward by Gretel Colleen after the last time she visited Burrawa. So she donated some money to this event, and she will also be attending the event. So please think about going. I'd also like to thank the Mayor for coming to the opening of the Lachlan Valley overtaking lanes. The member for Goulburn, Prue Goward, opened those works over 7 million, but I think it's turned out to be 10 million because they've actually resealed the road there as well. This is a huge highlight for me because we have been lobbying for this work to be done to make that road safer. I cannot really tell you for as long as I've been in local government, but it goes beyond that. And previous mayors, Mayor Gledhill was a big advocate for trying to get this work done. Chris Corcoran, previous mayor, also. And I know that we were supported along the way from the Canberra Region Joint Organisation and Centroc, so this is a big coup, and I thank the member for Goulburn for making it happen, and I don't think it would have happened without her. I'd also like to say that's enough for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckerman. Councillors, I dropped my diary around on 2 years before the meeting. It's been pretty busy. I did notice by people talking about the meeting in Jugiong. I was present at that, but I forgot to put that on the list, but that was another one I was at. The only one that I'd really mention, and quite glad to mention it, is the invitation that was extended to me from our local member to accept the additional $2.67 million for transitional funds. As everyone in this room knows, it's been quite a battle for a long time, and assurances were given, and we all waned at times in whether that may come true, but true to their word, that the Deputy Premier and the Premier and our local member, both our local members, I might add, Prue Goward from that side and Steph Cook from here, who lobbied and went into bat for us to make sure that the promise that they made and that I'd made and other people had made to our community, that the amalgamation transition cost wouldn't cost the ratepayers. So that was a pretty special morning. Given on top of that, I had a late phone call the night before to say that there was another announcement coming with it. And I thought, oh, okay, so, as I do, tossed and turned. But it was worth tossing and turning because that other announcement was another $3.1 million in project grants. So for Hilltops Council, it was the 18th was a really good day, and a day that I won't forget for a little while, because it brought to an end a period for me where I can personally, and Council, we can start to look forward further, because that matter's been dealt with. So that's very heartening for me. And the other thing I would mention is that I had a couple of one-on-ones with councillors, and if any other councillor I haven't got to wants to make the most of that opportunity, I most welcome that. And I've made myself available to the community of Harden and Burrawa on the first Tuesday of each month. If anyone in those communities would like to come and sit down with me in the chambers and discuss any issues they've got in their area, just to make sure that I am available to everyone. I am available anyway. It's only a phone call to anyone, but I thought it might be just worthwhile to give it a trial, to go to those two communities and sit myself down there, and by appointment or just by drop-in, feel free to come and talk to me. So thank you very much for that. Everyone's reports. That's that out of the way. I had forgot to bring that up earlier on. So,
Mr Mayor, can I just ask a question? It may be because I wasn't here, but the extra $3.1 million that you alluded to,
yep.
is that they were projects that were in the Stronger Country Communities funding applications? So, right.
Yep, I'll talk. Yep, I think I know where you're going. Yep, that's fine. The one thing I wanted to qualify from our local member when that next morning when it was made, that it in no way interferes with the $5.26 million that's coming when the next announcement is made. And I was very pleased that she assured me, no, this is separate funding. Some of the projects came out of that list that was originally sent away. So what that told me, that by them projects coming off and already being funded, other projects on that other list would be looked at. So in round figures, when I looked at it and just done some rough homework, I think there'll be some pretty happy people when that $5.2 million is announced when it comes around, because of the projects that have been taken out and already funded. So,
just a question in relation to that. From recollection, the Stronger Country Communities application had $1 million for village halls, and I saw that this announcement accounted for 800 and something thousand. Thanks, Rita. Very good. And I just wondered, MURRINGO wasn't on the list of the 894. Is its hall included in the remaining application?
Yes, it is. I don't know why, but the 894 was all of the village hall improvements that we'd put up. So yeah, the MURRINGO is included, just wasn't included in the press release, media release.
Yeah. There was a number of them that weren't included in the. It was an administrative error. Yeah. So, thank you. Yeah. No, so there was not much good getting a 3.1 and then finding out it was coming off something else, but it wasn't.
Mr Mayor, just quickly on what Councillor Wallace said, with the issues at Gaylong and the water possibly coming through electrical work, was Gaylong mentioned as well, or would it be prioritised over the others for safety reasons?
No, it won't. We'd have to find that out of our maintenance due, because the funding agreement was for the projects that we put up, and what we can do is that should be fixed quite quickly, because I think it is a health and safety issue. Then if there's any money left over, we'd need to go back to with another list of projects if we couldn't spend all of the money, and then I think we'd have to look at the other, because I think the priority was for the villages, and so we would look to see what other projects we had in the villages.
Thank you.
Presumably that should just come out of a maintenance budget or an allocation fund.
That's right. Yep, that's right.
So, Mr Mayor, the village, were any of the projects that the council put forward had anything to do with the seat of Goulburn? Were there any in that seat?
Councillor Tuckman, no. The announcement of the $3.1 million was announced from the Cootamundra. When I asked about that consideration, my understanding is that when the announcement of the $5.2 million will be announced, I think that the Burra end of Hilltops will be well catered for. And I'm not too sure if their member has an allocation to announce yet, but Prue hasn't mentioned it if she has.
I understand that, but I'm just wondering, when we put in our application for village hall improvements, were there any from Burra amongst that $1 million, which hasn't been funded yet?
Can I take that on notice and find out?
Thank you, Councillor Tugman, and points taken on board. Yep. Okay, Council, we'll go back to the business paper. Item 18154, the Hilltops Works Report. Moved Councillor Flannery, seconded Councillor Manchester. Questions or comments? If not, all those in favour?
Mr Mayor, just a quick question.
Sorry.
I asked at the last meeting if the Director could report on the state of Yandilla Road, and I can't see that there's been any maintenance grading on it. So perhaps the Director might advise, has anyone been out to check the state of it? And there was another couple of questions I asked, which I don't actually have in front of me, regarding last month's maintenance report. Through Yandilla Road, I was advised by a ratepayer out there that it was actually hazardous to the point where he said his exhaust on his recent model ute actually fell off. It was in such a bad state. And I asked, could someone at least inspect it and get some urgent grading out there? He made a number of comments about when it was graded, and I noted that it was very unlike. I assume it would come from the southern end, and normally they work very well. So I don't know whether it rained after they did it, but he said it was in a diabolical state. I did ask a couple of other questions in last month's report, but I haven't written them down, so I don't know whether the Director has copies of those.
Just a comment there. Actually, I went and had a look at Yandilla Road after Councillor Flannery mentioned it, just out of curiosity. I hadn't been on it for a while, but Woodlands Road and Gladstone Road are also need grading, but it's nowhere near as bad as what this ratepayer obviously made out to Councillor Flannery, because you can drive it along it quite easily at 100 k's and it won't, Yeah. But there is a lot of rutting in some. There's a few potholes here and there, but there's a lot of rutting in the other two roads. So
I wasn't 100% clear that I had Yandilla Road. He went on with all the list of roads are out there, and I didn't think I'd make the point at the last that I thought it was Yandilla Road, but wasn't too sure whether it was either.
Thank you for that, Councillor O'Connor.
You also asked for, is it Campbellfields Road and Cunningar Road? Campbellfields Lane and Cunningar Road, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Any other questions or comments on the works report? If not, I'll put it. All those in favour? Again? So be it. Item 18155, the action summary report. Any questions or...
Mr Mayor, I've got a couple of questions. Item 16149, can we get an update on the Squires Bingham action in regards to the credit sale CDO? Is there any movement in that at all?
The last was about 3 or 4 months ago, where there was just something from the solicitor saying that they were dealing with it. So that's all we've had.
1845. I'm mindful of the fact that there's a live stream, but has there been a valuation received yet?
So take that on notice?
We'll take it on notice, but I don't believe we have.
Okay, and I'll just, 17,245, can you please draw a line to that? Well, congratulations to all those involved.
Beat me to it. Thank you. There's also, Councillor Armstrong pointed that out, you might also put a straight through 18,133, please, as that work has been completed as well, being the same item.
Yeah. This was done before we got...
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just... Any other questions or...
Mr Mayor, I have a couple of questions, and
Plenary.
Probably a few of them won't be able to they'll be taken on notice, but 17,146, 164, just it says completed. What were the details on the investigation? I'll go through 17,207. Sorry, I've asterisked that because we were dealing with it tonight. 17,227, 17,232. It's just 17,235. These go to the. I guess these go to the question that we noticed we were going. It was noted that we were going to do asset management reports. Just if we could get reports on where these are up to. There's no point in just listing them in a table and then not knowing where the items are up to. 17,356, it was noted at a meeting that Council are not aware of where the Harden tennis courts are up to. It was a meeting about 3 weeks ago, and I've been in contact with the people there, and they say they've been in contact with Council regarding the Harden tennis courts under that sports infrastructure funds, but it certainly hasn't been back to any council reports on where that money is, where the allocation's occurring. I don't know whether it was part of the presentation the other night for the Harden Country Club, whether that was included, but certainly I'm not aware of where the redevelopment or relocation of the tennis courts are up to. 17,376 is noted as being completed, but I would like to note that there still seems to be no work occurring with the Limestone Way and Burley Griffin Way intersection, and I have noted at a previous council meeting that the height and position of the I don't know what you call the signs, but the signs that have the cross-hatching of black and white are in when you're approaching both ways from Boyo Road and Limestone Way, those signs are in a position where they give you a blind spot for oncoming traffic. I noted it months ago to the then director. I guess it's up to the RMS to consider those. But could we get advice on what's happening with that whole intersection, please? Item 1844, currently being pursued through our solicitors. 1893, staff numbers. I think the report we received, which was part of the, also on the staff numbers, which went into the annual budget report, I wasn't so interested in where those staff were technically allocated. It's where they're working out of. I would think the figures differ by 50%. And their paychecks might be coming out of the Harden office or the Burra office, but they're actually working, many of those staff are working in other offices, which is leading to the some of the concerns that other staff have, that they're basically vacant buildings and are not able to address ratepayer problems. So I am still concerned about a lack of staff, a lack of directors being present in Harden and Burra offices, that staff that are being paid out of those offices are in fact working out of Young on many occasions. There's general discontent that many of the staff don't see the directors, don't know who the directors are, and it really, if we want this shire to work, it needs to be a collaborative effort by the directors to make sure they're in Harden and Burra offices, consulting with staff both indoor and outdoor so they know what's going on. You can have whatever you like in the policies and procedures as to whether staff should talk to councillors. Reality is, if they're discontent, they'll talk till the cows come home. If they're happy, they'll keep their business themselves, and I'm getting plenty of staff that are talking to me.
Councillors can be the same.
Absolutely, absolutely. It doesn't pass the pub test, what's going on at the moment.
Next point.
18.1.15, what's happening with all those items? That's all, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Anyone else, any comments or questions in regard to the action report? On any items? Councillor Walker. You put your... It's a combined meeting. Is that correct?
There's no better meeting. Thanks,
I'll repeat what I said. It's a combined meeting. Is that correct?
That's right.
Thank you.
Will that go into councillors' calendars?
Mr Mayor, just
Councillor
in regards to the item that Councillor Flannery brought forward, and I noticed it talks about workshops, and I'm a bit concerned that we aren't meeting to discuss some of these issues in a workshop, that we've deferred it to the community meetings. I'm just wondering how management feel about that, and whether there's a need to have workshops with councillors.
My view is there is a need to have workshops with councillors. It's actually getting the business coordinated enough to be able to do it in an effective way. At this stage, I'm programming now workshops 2 weeks before the council meeting in that afternoon, so that we actually can brief the council and discuss issues probably in a bit more informal basis than what we've been doing tonight, particularly in some of the difficult ones. Make sure we actually have a discussion before there's any report presented to the council on that. Yes, there are some outstanding ones with the IPNR, which are indicated in the IPNR, and
It's work to be done over the next 2 years.
Yes, there is, but some of it's already been scheduled for the second quarter, and we need to start thinking about it now because the second quarter is coming up in the end of September.
Thank you. So I think the answer is yes. Workshops need to be programmed, and so we can get on top of some of these issues that we need to address. Anyone else with any comments or on the action report? If not, I'll put that. Have we got a mover and seconder, please? No.
Mr Mayor, just before we move it and second it, a lot of these issues go to the heart of how some of them are just trivial matters, where the signs have been put up, what general community frustrations there might be with particular items, but the report is a mix of those sort of pothole issues and big ones like IPNR. And to address this properly, yes, we need workshops, but we also need a report on what the key strategies are of the council moving forward. I mean, if you look at what the whole amalgamation, that they brought amalgamation on under the pretext of a whole lot of finance and issues and some governance, but really they're looking for a council that is more strategic in nature, and I don't see our business papers as having much strategy in place. It's not broken up into asset management. I mean, if this was a board of directors, you wouldn't deal with half this rubbish, but there's no strategy in here. I mean, it's just under these line items that we've got to go and say, where's it up to? We really need a council business paper that it's broken down into community, asset, get some headings under it, and let's deal with them on a governance level that has direction.
Thank you for your input, Councillor Flannery, and that's something that can be investigated, and hopefully as we move forward, and that famous words, moving forward, we can address those and get those matters in place so that our business paper does read and work like it should. So I need a mover and a seconder for the moved Councillor Horton, seconded Councillor Armstrong. All those in favour? Aye. Again, so be it. Thank you. I think that takes me to correspondence for attention. Yep. The recommendation is the balance of correspondence be noted. Moved Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Horton. All those in favour? Thank you. It takes me to Council Committee reports, and we've got some action on the Hilltops Environmental Initiative Committee to address. There's a report there and a recommendation, and it's pretty straightforward, I would think, but there it is, Council, for you.
Mr Mayor, if I may make a comment about the recommendation. Country Energy, or contractors for Country Energy, recently visited Harden and did some pruning on trees underneath power lines. Some of those trees under the power lines had been growing for a lot of years, had been quite large, and they basically came along and had to, probably to get in line with the height gaps between the top of the trees and the power lines, cut half a tree off. I think we need to be planting trees that are suitable to go under power lines if we're doing plantings under there that will only grow to a particular height. And we should move a recommendation that's in line with that, native species that will only grow to a particular height to remove excessive pruning.
Thank you, Councillor.
Mr Mayor, can I move the recommendation? And I think I'll then end up speaking against it, so maybe I better not move it.
Thanks very much for that input, Councillor Flannery. That really helps matters now. You're either moving the recommendation or you're not.
Someone else will have to move it.
When you're worried about business papers, we just need to get some things in order, please. So, I've had a mover of the recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Manchester. Do I have a seconded by Councillor Horton? I'll open to questions or discussion on the recommendation. Now I've got a mover and a second.
Oh, look, if no one's going to speak for it, I'll speak against it to the extent that whilst I think it's important to have native species to encourage, wildlife or indigenous birds and animals, I don't agree that planting trees that encourage indigenous birds and animals along roadways, it's just a good way to get them killed, to be quite honest. And they are also the ones who are the most prolific droppers of limbs. I mean, every business paper we deal with pruning hazardous vegetation, and they're all native trees. I mean, the reality is European trees don't drop their limbs like native trees do. I think there's plenty of funding available through land care and other for tree avenues that occur on farms, and I just think we'd be aware of our environment. We don't need a policy that encourages indigenous trees or native trees to proliferate our streets that end up just having birds there that get killed and so on. So,
thank you, Councillor Flannery. Question, Councillor Armstrong.
Some number of years ago, the former Young Shire prepared a street tree planting policy and a street tree planting plan. That plan included a variety of species. I'm just wondering whether that plan is currently available, and can Council get a copy of that plan? Because unless Council adopts a new policy, my understanding is that plan would still be current.
Point, Councillor Armstrong. So staff can we'll need to take that on notice and chase that up. But what we're dealing with now is the recommendation that's in front of us.
Mr Mayor, just in a question in relation Environmental Initiatives Committee, how did the environmental concerns raised in regard to Councillor Walker's comments in the media on Cultural, Community and Education Precinct arise out of an environmental group? And was there a conflict of interest here?
You lost me along the way there.
I'm referring to the report on the following 2 pages, which is what comes under that motion, the item we're dealing with. I'm on page 2 of the Environmental Committee report, Initiatives Committee, which is what this feeds into.
Yep.
Through the Mayor, if I may.
Yep, I've got where it is.
The environmental concerns were raised around the potential removal of trees and impact on the visual environment of that area, and raised as a environmental concern through that committee.
So what were the environmental concerns? I'm just trying to work out what the nexus is between the precinct committee, of which the person named here is Department of Ed delegate, and was there conflict of interest raised, either pecuniary or non-pecuniary?
Through the Mayor, there was no declaration of a conflict of interest made. And the environmental concerns were primarily around the removal of the trees and the impact upon the visual environment of that area.
Okay, point taken, I think. So I've got a mover and a seconder for the recommendations there. Councillor Fleming spoke against that, and I concur with some of the things he said. Would anyone else like to speak for the recommendation? Councillor Rolls.
Through the Mayor, I'd like to speak for it. I think it's important that we plant native species. They don't have to be all eucalyptus that drop their limbs. In fact, it's most probably just as important that we look at the more shrub types that provide a lot of the food for our native birds. If we want to have sparrows and starlings and pigeons, then yes, we'll go with the exotics. But if we want to encourage our little thrushes and our native birds, then I think it's important that we encourage the planting of a mixture of plantings, and certainly those that are Indigenous to this area. So I would support this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Rolls. Would anyone like to speak against the recommendation? No? Anyone else like to speak for? Sorry, Councillor O'Connor.
No, I mean, I'm not speaking against it, but I'm just thinking of a little amendment. I agree with what Councillor Rolls is saying. However, it's just there's got to be discretion as to the placing of the native trees, in that they aren't placed in areas where, you know, dropping limbs is going to be dangerous. Like if they're in a park or anywhere else, it's not an issue. But if they are on roadways where the limbs are going to fall, well then, you know, we just need to have a bit of discretion as to where they're placed.
We're pruning trees, eucalypts, left, right and centre out of our parks because they're a hazard to people in them. I mean, and the reality is, if you want to see dead superb parrots, you want to drive along the Harden-Burra Road where there's any vegetation. I mean, they're littered along the side roads. I think native trees are important, but encouraging shrubs, particularly along roadways, is just a recipe for death for birds.
I take that basically as your right of reply, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Tuckerman.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I was just looking at the recommendation, and I think what it's saying to us that we prepare a policy in regards to encouraging plants. I don't necessarily think that it should be street trees, but I think it's something that can be brought back to council to consider, taking into consideration former Young's policy in regards to what sort of trees should be planted, preferred trees. I do know that the former Burrawa actually had a policy that they weren't to put eucalyptus trees in parks because of the issues around falling limbs. So I think we could come up with a good policy that actually meets everybody's concerns and also encourages bird life and in areas that they can be planted without those concerns.
Okay, Council. So from what I'm hearing, we're either talking about deferring this off till we have another look, or we make some amendments to that recommendation that's there.
Just knock out as street trees.
Well, I'm asking, does someone like to move an amendment? Preferably, probably add some people who are against the
I'll move an amendment that council prepare.
Not too fast. Yep, sorry.
Council prepare a policy for the planting of trees, including street trees, trees in playgrounds, parks, and other public places.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I withdraw so we can speed this up. Withdraw my recommendation on my support for recommendation that's printed in front of us.
Thank you, Councillor Manchester. So what I have there now, councillors, is that council prepare a policy for the planting of trees, including street trees, trees in playground parks and other public places. Councillor Armstrong, is that?
Yes.
Yes, after. So that's moved by Councillor Armstrong. Does that have a seconder?
Yep.
Councillor Horton. If anyone wants... Got Manchester, Horton, I thought Armstrong, Horton, but anyway. So there it is. If anyone wants to speak against it or to it, or I'll put... Okay, so I'll put that to council. All those in favour?
Aye.
Again? So be it. Thank you for that. Which takes... Beg your pardon? The balance of the committee reports be noted, please. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor. That brings us to, I would ask someone to move us into closing, please. Moved Councillor Horton. Seconded Councillor Rolls. Is that a seconder for moving to closed?
There's another item in this, the heads of agreement has to be added to that list.
Yeah, and the heads of agreement will be discussed in this yet. So we moved into closed. Do I take we want a 5-minute
Yes.
intervention? Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, 5 minutes.